Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another season preview. Today we have the College Hoops 2022-2023 season preview. I'm Matt Gannon from JerseyWayBetting.com, and I have a very special guest this week, my good buddy Nick Lorensen from MidMadness.com. He writes there, he does social media for there, knows a lot about college basketball, knows a lot about mid-majors, which I know is a very key component of what we do at Jersey Way Betting and what you guys who are watching this care about, because I know a lot of people know about all the Power 5 schools, but we get into the ugly schools, the SWAC, the MEAC. It's fun. We make money on that stuff. So bringing on my boy Nick. Nick, thank you for joining me. Welcome on. Happy to have you here.
Yeah, anytime. I appreciate you having me on. Always love talking mid-major hoops. I'll talk about the big boys too. Love talking basketball.
So we're going to go. I mean, if you're watching this, you're going to want to probably skip around. This isn't a live show. So we're going to start with the ACC, get all the way down to the Western, the SWAC. We're going to go every single conference, talk a little bit about not each team, but the teams we feel like are notable. I'll give my input. He'll give his. We'll go back and forth, give some bets we have, who we think is going to win, a team to fade, stuff like that. Same format as last year. So let's jump right into it. And we're going to start with the big boys. We're going to start with the ACC. First team I noted, I mean, how could you not note them? Coming off of a runner-up in the NCAA tournament, North Carolina Tar Heels, everyone's preseason number one, but it's not going great for them thus far. They return a good majority of that core and add Pete Nance from Northwestern. So what's your take on UNC this year?
Yeah, I mean, they played everyone close to begin with last year in Hubert Davis's first year. Right. They're kind of doing that again. You know, they lost to Iowa State. They lost to Alabama, both in the PK 85 tournament. But, you know, they're going to play these teams close. They didn't really pick it up until like mid-February last year.
Right.
So it's really interesting that, you know, I know they're returning Armando Bacot, but they were number one in the preseason poll. That really interested me. I didn't know why they were up there, but I have a feeling it's kind of going to be the same thing again. We got to see what happens in ACC play. I mean, the ACC is kind of really down this year. It continues trending downwards. But I think that they'll be up there towards the top. They aren't the best team in the nation. They dropped like 17 spots, I want to say, in the AP poll.
It's ridiculous. But I think it's warranted, though. I don't think they should have been number one, but I get why they were number one, just because they returned who they returned and where they finished last year. But I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I think that they should have been up there. I just don't know about number one. But I think that they're going to be fine. They'll be a tournament team. They should be like a maybe 3 through 5 seed, maybe even a 2 seed. I don't think that they're going to be a number 1 seed. But also the ACC is just so easy. Who knows? I mean, I think Virginia is going to be their biggest contender.
Right, and I wouldn't want to face that team in the tournament, that Bacot, Love, Davis trio. They're dangerous, and when they play defense, when they're locked in, they're a tough team to beat. But we'll move on to the Duke Blue Devils, a team that returns literally no one, but they bring on one of the best freshman classes we've seen in the last few years. All those top 10 players. Again, we don't know what we're getting with these classes every single year, but like they're going to be elite. They get the best kids in the country for a reason. Obviously, Coach K is gone. John Shire's first year. What do you make of the Blue Devils this year?
Yeah, it doesn't matter who's going to be the head coach here on out. They're going to get recruits because it's Duke. And they get guys. I mean, they've played well so far. They lost to Purdue. It was tough because of the size advantage. You know, Zach Edey's just such a difficult guy to guard, but they beat Xavier in that tournament. Xavier's a really good team. They struggled with Oregon State. That's kind of question mark, but like Bellarmine was a pretty easy win. Delaware was a pretty easy win. I think that they'll be okay. They'll be up there towards the top, but I'm not expecting too much out of Duke.
Yeah, and it's just those teams, like I think they are a ceiling floor team because all the talent they have. Again, I wouldn't want to face them in the tournament because we know what that talent can do in a tournament setting. But yeah, Duke Blue Devils will be at the top of the ACC. I don't think it's going to be their year to win it. But we'll move on to Miami, a team that I'm pretty high on. They get Nigel Pack from Kansas State, and we know that how Isaiah Wong is already. Like that duo is going to be awesome. But from there, they lose some of their double-digit scorers, and they also get an Arkansas State transfer who is going to be a key component at center. A little small, but I think Miami has a good roster this season.
Yeah, I love Norshad, the guy you're talking about, the Arkansas State transfer. He's the first player from Nicaragua to ever get a scholarship to play D1 basketball. And, I mean, in high school, he was super under-recruited for whatever reason, like UMBC, Arkansas State, FIU. Those are the ones off the top of my head. I think those were his final 3. But he was averaging double-doubles. He was averaging like 20 and 20 in high school in the Florida prep scene at Miami Prep. So he was going up against these IMG guys every day. And then he just carried it right into Arkansas State, won Sun Belt Freshman of the Year, won Player of the Year last year. He is a little undersized, but, I mean, he has, like, fight unlike anyone else. And, I mean, that backcourt, like you mentioned, Isaiah Wong's been great so far. Miller coming over from George Mason a couple years ago, he's done a good job so far. I mean, that Maryland game, they kind of struggled.
Tough team they are. Maryland's a
tough team. I mean, Julian Reese is kind of their only size inside, but, I mean, he matches up well with Norshad. I think Miami's going to be right up there towards the top. Jim Larrañaga always does a great job. You know, they struggled at the beginning of last year, kind of picked it up there at the end. And just that money that they were dishing out this offseason for NIL was huge for them. I mean,
it's Miami,
I believe it was Wong and Norshad who got the two most.
And Pat got a lot too.
Yeah, those three got a lot of money, and it really helped out that program. And I think that that's going to set them up for a lot of success in the future.
And I don't think Larrañaga would be here if they didn't have that run they had last season. So I think they're going all in, because I was talking to my buddy who is a walk-on at Miami, and he was saying that if we don't have a deep run this year, I think Jim's gone, and I think I'm transferring. So I think the vibes are high in Miami. They know they have a goal to win. They got the guys. They got some transfers, and the ACC is kind of wide open. We see what North Carolina, the preseason favorite, has done so far to start the season. Miami could get it done this year in the ACC, and no one would be that surprised, because they are a tough team who I wouldn't want to face. We saw the transfers we were talking about. He's undersized, but my man's going up for rebounds. Yeah. Like it's crazy. Yeah. I don't think he's going to compete with those ACC bigs like here, like every game, but he is a tough guy, like you were saying.
Especially against teams like at the bottom of the league, like a Pitt or Florida State or Louisville, who just stink. I think he'll feast against them.
All right, we'll move on to NC State. Jordan from Ole Miss, transfer. He's looking awesome to start the season. Besides that, they lose a few guys, but him and Trey Smith, great combo. I think they're going to be one of the better guard duos in the ACC, but I don't know if they have the depth outside of those two guards to really compete. What's your take on the NC State Wolfpack?
They've kind of been treading water over these last couple of years. You know, I hope for Kevin Keats is a great coach. He's kind of struggled these last couple of years, so I mean, I think they're a program that's going to get back up towards the top. I don't know if they're going to be a top 4 team in the league. They'll be more towards the middle of my prediction. But Jarkel Joyner, like you mentioned, he was at Ole Miss. Yeah. He was at Cal State Bakersfield, I want to say, before that. Yeah. He's a really good guard. I mean, Kevin Keats, he has a coaching advantage over a lot of coaches in the league. So I think that's going to be a big deal when you look at the Wolfpack.
Yeah, Wolfpack will be solid. All right, we'll move on to the Pitt Panthers, a team I'm actually pretty high on this season. I'm expecting more from Nelly Cummings. Obviously, he's a Colgate transfer. He hasn't been doing much so far this season, and we know what he did at Colgate. He's kind of led them to a few good seasons. I like what they have with their bigs, but I mean, that Northwestern game last night, I know this is recorded at like a weird time. It's not preseason. That Northwestern game last night was impressive. I know Northwestern's not a great team, but I like the Pitt Panthers. I wish Dior Johnson was playing, but he's just not, because he's like a legit criminal. But I think that the Pitt Panthers with John Hugley at down low could be decent. I know you might not like him, but how do you feel about Pitt Panthers?
Yeah, I mean, I have a love-hate relationship with Pitt. Like growing up,
Pitt I know you're a Steelers fan, so
yeah. My mom went to Pitt, so my dad went to Duquesne. My mom went to Pitt. I grew up a huge Pitt fan. I was really heartbroken when Jamie Dixon was fired or let go or whatever it was. But I'm still really pissed off that they won't schedule Duquesne. There's absolutely no reason why they shouldn't do that. I'm not a big Jeff Cable guy.
Because they're scared.
Yeah, they are scared. Exactly. Very scared. But I'm not a huge Jeff Cable guy. I think he has had his stay way too long there. That game against Northwestern last night, yeah, that was super impressive. But yeah, I think he like you said, all these criminals keep coming in and they're like raping chicks, and it's just not going well. Like,
it's crazy.
I don't know how he keeps getting these kids. It has to be something with the culture. I'm actually going to Pitt and seeing them play on the 10th against Sacred Heart, so I'll see how they do. But like Nelly Cummings is humongous. John Hugley came back yesterday. That should be really big for him down low. They have guys all over. Nick Sabandy from Miami of Ohio. They have a lot of pieces. You just got to see how they come together, right?
Yeah.
I'd love for Pitt to be great again. But it's going to take some time for me to hop back on the Panther train. I love their football program. I can't support their basketball program right now.
Yeah, they've been well to me so far against the spread, so I'm gonna keep riding Pitt while I can. But they gave us 7 last night on the road, and they won by like 30.
Yeah,
won by like 20. So Pitt's been good for me thus far. All right, we'll move on to UVA, a team that's caught some buzz early this season. They returned their top 6 scorers, but no real names are going to grab your attention. Like, oh, they got this stud, they got this NBA guy. It's not really the team that they are, but they're a good team. Kihei Clark returns for his 18th year. He's back, and I was always a Kihei Clark hater because he always tried to, I guess, do too much when he's not that guy. He's not a Antoine Davis. He maybe thinks he is, but if he can get right under, I mean, freshman year, Kihei Clark was the guy you want, the guy who's dishing the ball, giving the ball to his other players. And if they can have that type of culture, and we know what the Virginia defense is, at least at a macro level, they can maybe have that run that we saw a few years ago. So what's your take on Virginia this year?
Yeah, they've been putting up a good amount of points for a Virginia team. I mean, they've been putting up like 70 points per game. Huge game the night that we're recording this against Michigan. Really show what they're worth. But that defense is always great. I mean, Jaden Gardner really helps out that offense coming over from ECU. Who's a high scorer over there. Yep. Ben Vanderplas is a really good forward coming over from Ohio. I know a lot of people really high on Virginia coming into the season. Josh Pastner said that he thinks it was something crazy. Like, I think that Virginia is going to win the league, but UNC should be number 1 in my poll. I don't understand how that works, but I guess people in the league are really high on Virginia. I think that they're going to be really good defensively, like always. I think that there's a good chance that they might be able to stop Hunter Dickinson tonight. Who knows? I took the under in that game. But I think Virginia's going to be great, like always. They're probably my preseason favorite to win it in this league.
So that's our next topic. You think Virginia's going to win this conference? I'm going to go with my preseason feeling. I even know it's not strong, as strong as it was in the preseason. I'm going to go with North Carolina. I just love what they return. I don't want to fade them down. Maybe I'm not strong on this, so don't really tail this. I think that North Carolina is a team I wouldn't want to face in a tournament opposed to the regular season because they could just get hot. But I'm just going to go with North Carolina. And the team that I will be fading this year against the spread, no surprise, is Louisville. This is all for my preseason notes. I did not expect them to be this bad as they are right now. I assume you're going to be fading Louisville too, but do you have another team to note that you're going to be fading?
I'm doing that tonight. I have Maryland minus 13.5. Got a weird number, but I took the Terps. It's probably Louisville. I mean, Florida State's going to be one, shockingly, that
Boston College.
BC. BC's a really good one to fade. I mean, early on in the season, they were like a couple point favorites. I had Detroit Mercy. They almost lost to someone that's not that good. BC, they're in a really tough spot right now because they really don't have anyone. And Earl Grant comes over from Charleston, and Charleston, Boston, or Chestnut Hill are 2 completely different places to recruit. I think he'll be fine there in a couple of years, but they're in a tough spot right now. So, but Louisville and BC are in tough spots. I would probably fade both of them for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I just don't know what Payne's doing over there at Louisville. Like, he did the worst job ever in recruiting, brought in nothing, returned nothing, and it looks like an LLS ISO every single possession, and that's not going to work in Power 5, Power 6 basketball. So that's the ACC. We both like North Carolina. He likes Virginia. So fade Louisville, fade Boston College. We'll move on to the Big 12. Big 12 is one of my favorite conferences. It gets it gets more fun every single year. And I used to be a Big 12 hater among like football, basketball. Like, I just don't like watching the Big 12, but it's grown on me a lot past few years. So we're going to start with TCU. Arguably the best player in the conference in Mike Miles, another good guard duo with Ball. And then they return Eddie Lampkin, one of the better big men in the country. He literally looks like an offensive lineman, just a guy you wouldn't want to face. TCU made it to the second round of the tournament last year. Kind of been out the gate slow so far the first 2.5 weeks, but how do you think the Horned Frogs will make it out this season?
Yeah, like I mentioned, I love Jamie Dixon. I think he's one of the best coaches in the country. Mike Miles, great big man, one of the best big men in the country. But they struggled out of the gates. They're kind of picking it back up again. I think that they're going to be fine when all is said and done. The only thing is every game of the Big 12 seems like it's like a 1 or 2 possession game, and they're just so intense. So it's going to come down to coaching. You're going to have to see what happens. I don't think that they're going to be a top team in the league just because there's great coaching up there with Kansas and Texas and Kansas. Jerome Tang's done a great job at Kansas State. I bet we'll talk about them. But it's going to come down to coaching every night. All the teams are very, very gifted. And I mean, if there's a line higher than 6, I'd probably take it for the other team because there's going to be a lot of really close games in this league.
Yeah, Big 12 is going to be fun. All right, we'll talk about Texas. One of my favorite teams in the entire country. They're on my ceiling floor list, meaning that they're going to be amazing or be horrible on any given night with all those transfers. We saw it last year, but I think this year is a big stepping stone. They had all those transfers in, and they didn't really gel. You look at that roster and you're like, wow, this is talent. This is talent, a lot of talent. And it didn't really come to fruition. We saw them early beating the Zags by 20. And I know the Zags aren't what we expected and hoped this year, but that's still an impressive win in that new arena. Marcus Carr, Timmy Allen, Ty Hunter, and from Iowa State. That's a great get. I think Texas has a great chance to win the Big 12, to win even more than the Big 12 this season. How do you think Chris Beard and the Horns will fare this year?
Yeah, you mentioned all those guys. I think Chris Beard, he had a really good year last year, but I think this is going to be better than last year. He's kind of getting more accustomed to what's happening over there in Austin. That new arena is tough to play in because they aren't going to open the top much, and they have like those boards up there, so it's super loud. I heard it's like insane to play in. But Marcus Carr, he's been huge so far. I'm honestly shocked they weren't number 1 in the poll this week. Houston kind of
2 Texas teams.
Yeah, Houston and Texas are up there. I'm kind of shocked that they put Houston at 1. Kent's a really good team, sincere carry, but I mean Texas just smoked Gonzaga. Gonzaga's got smoked a couple times this year.
Wasn't even close.
It was never close. No. I bet on Gonzaga. A big regret, but
big regret.
Big regret. But they beat them and they've smoked every other team they're playing. It's gonna be interesting when they play. They play Creighton on Thursday and Illinois next Tuesday. So 2 really tough opponents up here Texas is made of. I think that they're probably my favorite to win the league at this point. And I think that they're going to be a 1 seed, maybe even a Final Four team.
All right, we'll move on to Texas Tech. They returned 3 double-digit scorers, and including Davion Harmon from Oklahoma to Oregon, now back to Texas Tech. Amac from Oral Roberts, one of my favorite guys in the entire country. He's yet to play. O'Banner had a good season last year coming from Oral Roberts. So they got a few mid-major guys and transfers, but I like Mark Adams. I like the program. I think Tech's always a tough out, and they've just only gotten better the last 5 to 10 years. So what do you make of the Red Raiders this year?
Yeah, when talking to transfers over the offseason, Texas Tech always seemed to be at the top of their list. I mean, Mark Adams has just elevated that culture over there. Everyone loves Mark Adams. Everyone seems to have such a great time playing for him. Like when I first talked to Fardaws, I knew that he was going to Texas Tech just because how he glowed about them. I believe I talked to Davion Harmon. But there's everyone loves playing over there, and they have all these transfers coming in. He's done a great job. They should be up there towards the top. They lost those 2 games in Maui, but I think they're fine. Like you mentioned, O'Banner. When Fardaws Amac comes back, that's going to be one of the scariest, not the scariest, front court in the nation.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
They have all those point guard all those guard transfers coming in, so I think that they're set up for success. It's like I mentioned, it's going to come down to those last couple minutes during these games.
Yeah, losing Shannon and McCullough could be big, but they got some guys to fill those voids. So I think Tech, and I like we said, as the Big 12, like it's a deep conference. There's a lot of teams that can really get it done here. We'll move on to Oklahoma, a team that I don't really love. They get Sherfield from Nevada, a guy that I really do like, and he can score. Bama Seal from George Washington. And they lose a few guys, Goldwire, Harkless, and Gibson, pretty big. But Oklahoma, they've looked okay to start the season. I know they had a loss to, Sam Houston early?
Yep.
Sam Houston. And the win at versus Hall looked impressive. But I just don't think they have a deep enough roster to compete with these upper-level Big 12 teams.
Yeah, I mean, the Big 12 is just such a tough league. They have a lot of really good kids. But I'm gonna be shocked if they don't make it, if they don't play on that first day of the Big 12 tournament. There's always a team or 2 or 3 even who play in that 7 to 10 range, the 7, 10, 8, 9 game that make the NCAA tournament. They could very well be like a 9 seed who makes the NCAA tournament, but I don't see them competing. They got the Groves kid that comes over, the 2 Groves kids who come over from Eastern Washington. They've been well. Grant Sherfield's been a great guard coming over from Nevada. Joe Bama still, like you mentioned, at GW, can score in high numbers. I'd expect him, like maybe against a Kansas or a Texas, to put up like a 30 bomb and just knock off those teams. They're they're going to be a sneaky team. I think that they could upset maybe 3 to 4 teams in Big 12 play. So when it's right, and I think that they're going to make some noise.
Awesome. All right, we'll move on to Oklahoma State, one of my favorite 1-5s in the entire Big 12. John Michael Wright is just a guy that I've loved the past X amount of years at High Point. He's just a spark plug, can score at will. He's not going to be doing that on that level at Oklahoma State, but they're a team that I'm surprised how well he's recruiting at, because they had those sanctions and stuff like that. But they're still fighting. They're still scoring. They return their top 2 scorers in Avery Anderson and Bryce Thompson. They're down low with Boone and Cisse. Like, they look good, 1-5. And I was so impressed what they did against Prairie View A&M. That's a team that can upset not anyone. That's a team that could run with the big guys. They're fast. They could score. And what Oklahoma State did offensively in that game was just like they were playing fast, and they were moving like an Oklahoma State team that I'm not really used to, because they're more of a defensive team, I would say, if I'm just looking at the team. But I'm very impressed with Oklahoma State early in the season. How do you think they'll fare in this Big 12?
Yeah, I think Mike Boynton, he's done a great job. But the thing about them is they get kind of hot towards the end. So I think like a February, they're going to be a really good team. Maybe make some noise. That Southern Illinois game was really tough. They had a large lead there. They blew that. But then they went to Oakland and absolutely blew the doors out of a really good team.
They lost to Oakland last year, I believe, right?
Yeah, they did lose to Oakland and at Gallagher-Iba, but they went into Rochester and beat them this year, which is pretty impressive. But then they bounced back and they lost to UCF. So early in the season, you just don't know what's going to happen with them. I mean, I don't know too much about their roster, to be completely honest. Like, when teams can't make the tournament, I kind of tune them out. So there's been, like, even the mid-major teams, I'm tuning into them more, but for a long time, I really never tuned into them. I like Cisse, Caleb Asbury. I mean, I don't know. I think that they could be like a 4 or 5 in the league if things go right and they get hot there at the end. But I also wouldn't be shocked if they're like 8 or 9 in the Big 12 this year.
Yeah, I agree. We'll move to K-State, a team that's rebuilding, but they're rebuilding in a fun way. They added a few key guys. Desi Silas, one of my favorite mid-major guys the last few years from Ark State. Feel bad for Ark State losing their 2 guys, but Keontae Johnson from Florida. I know he's been. Has he played at all recently? I haven't really been.
Yeah, he's played every game.
Yeah. Okay. So K-State's going to be fun. They were not great last year. They finished 9th in the conference, but I like what they're doing in Manhattan. So how do you think they'll do so far?
Yeah, I mean, they've been really well. They won that tournament last weekend. They went to beat LSU in the Cayman Islands Classic. They also beat a really good Nevada team before that, and Archie Miller in Rhode Island. So those are 3 really nice wins. Beat 3 teams, including Cal before that. So it's going to be interesting. They go into Butler on Wednesday. That's always a tough place to play. Then they play Wichita. So this week's kind of going to be a gut check week. I wouldn't be shocked if they come out in non-conference unbeaten, though, because it's a really easy schedule. But Jerome Tang's done an amazing job over there. They have all these transfers who are really strong. Keontae Johnson, like you mentioned, from Florida. He's been great. He's their leading scorer, 17.7 points per game. And right behind him is Marquise Knoll, who comes over from UALR. He's averaging 15.3 points per game. So they got those 2 guys and Desi Silas, like you mentioned, from Arkansas State. So they got a lot of really nice guard pieces. It's just going to be interesting to see how that front court goes up against everyone else. I think that they're another team, maybe the 4, 5, 6 spot. They should be in the NCAA tournament. And I really like Jerome Tang. I mean, he brings over that same style that they played over there at Baylor. I think that they're in a good spot in Manhattan. Yeah,
they're going to upset some of the big dogs in the Big 12 this year for sure. They're going to have a game that everyone's going to be shocked about, but you and I are we're going to be like, yeah, that was coming. We saw that coming. But okay, so I think we're aligned. I think we think Texas is the team in the Big 12 to win it all.
Yeah, I agree.
Texas, and a team that you're fading in the Big 12. Who's that?
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I mean, every team's great in this league, but I kind of want to go with like a West Virginia.
I'm with you.
Same. Yeah. I mean, Eric Stevenson, I watched him a lot last year. He kind of just puts up shots in volume, and he never really is too accurate. He's been at like 5. He's been at South Carolina, Wichita, Washington, and now he's at WVU. So that's like 4 schools in 4 years. He'll put up like 15 3-point shots a game and make maybe like 6. But it's going to be tough to run that offense through him. But it's also hard to bet against Huggies. So it's like it's gonna be tough to really fade any school in this league, but if anything, I'm gonna go WVU.
Yeah, I'm also aligned with you on WVU. They return 0 double-digit scorers. They lose their 2 guys in Taz Sherman and Sean McNeil. I feel like you said, they got those transfers, but I feel like it's just a bunch of like mid-average transfers. No, I don't, and we don't know how well when you get a bunch of transfers together, it's always tough for them to gel in a 1-year setting. So, and especially they don't really have any key guys. Joe Toussaint from Iowa, a guy that I never really liked because he seems a little bit too sporadic for me. Doesn't feel like he fits in well with his offense. So we're aligned in the Big 12. Hopefully, that could be horrible. Watch it blow up in our face, but
I mean,
we'll see how that goes.
It doesn't help that Huggy doesn't like mid-major guys. He only goes after high-major guys. He thinks that mid-majors are like the worst thing to ever happen to college basketball. So
right,
he needs to get his head out of his ass and start recruiting these guys. Eric Stevenson, I don't know if he's going to come. I don't know if he's going to.
All right, we'll move on to the Big East conference that turned some heads early in the season with Connecticut, Creighton. So we'll start with Creighton. They returned that sophomore core, and the expectations in Omaha are super high. Went to the second round of the NCAA tournament. Nimhart, Alexander Kaluma, and Baylor Skyerman from South Dakota State. He looks like Jimmer Fredette out there, just tossing the shots up from half court, just drain. I'm like, what the hell is this guy doing? And he's just making them. Yeah. But Creighton looks awesome to start the season.
Yeah, Baylor Skyerman's great. Comes over from South Dakota State. They had the best season in Summer League history last year. And he was really a key piece of that team, and he's done a great job so far. They have 5 guys averaging double-digit scoring, and I mean, all the guys are really good. They've been good for a long time. Kalkbrenner, Alexander, Nemhard, Kaluma. It's just going to be interesting to see how that bench works out. I think Creighton's a great team. I think I mentioned earlier they play a big game this week. They play Texas, on Thursday.
Where's that game?
This is at Texas, so they'll be really
big game.
Yeah, if they can go in there and make it a one-possession game or even win it, that's going to prove a lot about this team.
Yeah. I'm nervous for the front court, just physicality-wise in the Big East, because we know what the Big East is, especially when they face the UConns, even the Seton Hall, the physicalities of those teams. We know they could shoot the lights out, which is obviously a bonus, but I'm interested to see how they are matched up with the big physical teams in the Big East. If they get hot, they could beat anyone in the country from outside, literally. So Creighton's going to be one of the favorites in the entire nation. Everyone likes Creighton this year. So we'll move on to DePaul, a team that I think is going to have a decent season this year. They lose some of their big guys in Freeman Liberty, but they get a few transfers. Gibson from Oklahoma, Murphy from South Florida, and they get a guy from LIU who averaged close to 12 points a game last year. So what's your thoughts on DePaul? I mean, it's tough to recruit to that school. Mm-hmm. They haven't been good in a while, but they're always sometimes a tough out.
Yeah, I think their front court's kind of going to be the good thing for this team. Like you mentioned, Raul Penn comes over from LIU. He put up a lot of points. He put up a lot of rebounds over there in the NEC, but the NECs are really they don't have many great big men in the league. So who knows how he adapts. I mean, he's doing pretty well so far, 13.7 points and 9 rebounds per game. But I also really like Ioannai. He's over there in that front court. Emoja Gibson is going to be their star guard. I just don't know about DePaul. DePaul's always really tough. I think that they're going to be better than Georgetown. But,
they better be better than Georgetown.
They better be. But they started out really strong. They won their first 3 games. And now they're kind of getting challenged, and they're losing. They lost against Santa Clara and Oklahoma State in the Bahamas. I mean, both of them were fairly close, so they battled there. And then they got smoked by Texas A&M. It's going to be interesting. They got a really tough game on Wednesday when we're recording this. They're going to play Samford, who has a great backcourt. They've kind of had some guys injured, so I don't know how that's going to go. I think that there might be a lot of points there. I mean, I know DePaul's going to be better than Georgetown, but I'm not too high on the Blue Demons. I'd love to see them be good. They're a team that, everyone always wants to see do great. I'm hoping that it's about time that they get better.
Yeah, I mentioned that they lost Freeman Liberty. They also lose David Jones, who was another key guy that I just glanced over. And that you mentioned that Texas A&M loss. I think they were without 2 or 3 starters in that game. I could be wrong, but we'll see how DePaul acts this year. All right, speaking of Georgetown, I wrote in my preseason notes, there's nowhere to go but up. But I may be wrong. They may have gotten worse somehow, some way. Patrick Ewing, what the hell are you doing? You get 5 transfers. You get some of your guys back that you had on your previous team. Just what is going on with Georgetown? They're just horrible.
I mean, before it was just they'd have the guys and they would just transfer out because there'd be problems on campus.
Right.
But now it's like they're a black hole, and it sucks because it's such a great program. It's nice to go down to DC when they're good and there's a good atmosphere there.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just not pretty right now. Like Primo Spears has been doing a great job coming over from Duquesne, putting up a lot of points over there. Kudus Wahab's come back over. I mean, he's whatever.
He loves the DMV. He loves it so much.
Yeah, he does. He went Georgetown to Maryland, back to Georgetown. Heath. But I mean, like, yeah, who knows? Like, I watched pretty much that whole UMBC game, what I could, because South Carolina was on, but I had them turn it on at the Buffalo Wild Wings in Charlotte when I got off my plane. I think it kind of shows how bad,
Only us would do that.
Yeah, no one else would do that. But first of all, I love UMBC so much. Second of all, I have to have some college basketball, and there's like 2 huge college football games on. I need this game on in the corner. Yeah. I felt like a psycho asking to have it on, but it's whatever. I think it kind of showed how bad UMBC is going to be this year. I think Georgetown might be able to win a game or two in the Big Ten. Who knows?
Crazy that those are the expectations for Georgetown in 2022. Like, damn. So Georgetown is a black hole. No, they won't.
They just aren't going to fire Ewing because he's a Georgetown guy. So it's the whole family thing.
All right, we'll move on to Seton Hall. Lost in round 1 of the tournament. Shaheen Holloway from St. Peter's after that magical run. 2 transfers, Dawes from Clemson and Casey and Dafo from St. Peter's. They're the guys who average the most points per game. But those aren't the guys who are going to be really doing it on this Seton Hall roster. They're a team that's just going to try to defense you to death, to out-athletic you to death, to be uber aggressive on defense, but they don't really have an offensive scheme. And it's tough to watch as a Seton Hall fan from Miles Powell, Miles Cale to what we have now. It's just a completely different atmosphere, like watching them. I think they're a team that if they just catch fire can upset a big team in the country, but they're not pretty to watch. Like, I just don't enjoy watching Seton Hall games, at least so far in the season. How do you think they'll fare this year?
Yeah, that's the way that Shaheen Holloway was always at St. Peter's. The defense drowned teams out. But, it's been tough. The only games that they've really won outside of that Memphis game were against Mac, at least former Mac.
That Memphis game. Oh, my God.
Yeah, they squeezed one out against Memphis. But,
minus 1.5. Like, Memphis minus 1.5. And
lost
Tyrese Samuel. Like, are you kidding? Keep going.
I mean, yeah, like they beat Monmouth. They beat St. Peter's. They beat Memphis and they beat Wagner. So it's like he's beating teams that he played before and when he was at St. Peter's. So he knows them. But he also lost to Siena, which is a Good team. They are a really good team. But, like, I really don't think he doesn't have a win yet. I wouldn't say that Memphis wins that impressive because I'm not too high on Memphis that really, like, shines any light on anything. So it's going to be interesting how they do this December, especially against Rutgers. See if they can drown them out on that defense. That's going to be a really good game. They play Kansas this week. I'm thinking that's going to be tough. They're playing Lincoln, PA.
They had their chance to beat Iowa. They was close until like second half. Iowa pulled away. They just couldn't. They got hot. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what to make of Hall. Anything else on Hall? Are you ready to move on?
Yeah, I just think it's going to be – I think if they can find a way to drown these teams out with their defense, it's going to be good. They'll be better than Georgetown. Like, I feel like I'm going to say that a couple more times.
That's the bar. They'll be better than Georgetown.
That's the bar. I mean, it's Shaheen Holloway's first year. He's always done well enough at St. Peter's. Never did anything too special before that NCAA tournament. So he's just got to find that little lightning in a bottle and carry it up from there. I mean, he didn't really get to recruit. He doesn't have that many recruits coming in, and a lot of guys came out, and they lost a lot from last year. So it's going to be interesting to see how they grow from here on out.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, speaking of ceiling floor teams, St. John's. They're a team that they'll beat Gonzaga, and they'll lose to a MAC team. That's just when you combine Andre Corbello with Posh Alexander, that's what you get. And that's you got to live and die by it. The hecticness, it's either going to be the first half of the Syracuse game, you're like, what's going on?
Yeah.
In the second half of the Syracuse game, you're like, I see what the hype is about. So they're a team that I love as underdogs. I love in a tournament setting. And I just think I don't love the bet on them game by game because it's either electric or garbage. There's no in between with the St. John's team.
Yeah, like you mentioned, that backcourt's great. You just don't know how great they're going to be in Big East. There's a lot of really good teams in the Big East. I don't feel like they have that size. Carpello and Posh Alexander are going to be one of the best backcourts in the country. They've looked really great to open the year. I watched a bit of that Niagara game too. Niagara kind of made it a game there at the end.
Yeah.
I feel like they need to find a way to get that size down low to make an impact, to close out games. I think as of now, they're probably a bubble team in the NCAA tournament. I think that they're going to be a pretty good team, but I don't know if they're going to be up there towards the top. They're a game-to-game thing. I feel like against a good majority of the Big East, they'll be a good team to bet, but against the top, against the Big East, I feel like it's going to be pretty difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I like their roster with David Jones, and they have Montez Mathis, old Rutgers guy.
Soriano too. I forgot about him. He's good.
Yeah, and Soriano. So they have a decent roster, but it's like if they can put it together, they can run with this Big East for sure. Move on to Xavier, a team I love this year. I love their roster. NIT championship. They won the NIT with after firing their coach midway through the NIT, which is funny. Soli Boom from UTEP, one of my favorite mid-major guys the last few years. He's looked awesome to start the season. Jones, Fremantle, Nunji, great front court. I love this Xavier squad. I think they have a really high ceiling. How do you think they'll fare this year?
I've always loved Xavier. That's a tough place to play. I mean, it really proved a lot just that program to win that NIT and to really do great there at the end. I like what they have. They battled Gonzaga. They only lost by 4. They battled Duke. They beat Florida. And they were in that Indiana game the whole time, and they could have won it there at the end. But I really like what they have. I think that they're going to be back up there towards the top. They're not going to have that ceiling that they've had the last couple of years where it's been like going into the preseason. They could be a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament, 3 seed in the NCAA tournament up there towards the top. But I think that they're still maybe a 3, 4, 5 in the league. Jack Nunji, like you mentioned, great. Sule Boom was great at UTEP. Zach Fremantle's been there forever. Adam Kunkel's kind of built a little role over there after coming over from Belmont. They have a lot of really good pieces, and I always loved the Xavier Musketeers. I think that they're going to be a fun team. Hopefully this year they make it back to the NCAA tournament. If you've ever been to Xavier, it's probably my least favorite college campus I've ever been to. But
really,
yeah, I mean, it's outside of the city of Cincinnati. It's kind of secluded. Yeah. I have a friend that goes there. I mean, I visited there. I was not impressed. I went from Dayton to there. Sorry to break that to anyone from Xavier that's listening to this. I know you're not going to like to hear that Dayton's better than Xavier, but I mean, it's really it's a basketball city, and I mean, they can really only focus on basketball being that secluded, whatever. It's like a 15, 20-minute drive into the city, but I think that they're going to be really good. I think that they're going to be up there maybe 3, 4, 5 in the Big East.
All right, we'll finish this up with Providence, and we have to touch on UConn. Providence, they had 3 Power 5 transfers in Locke, Carter, and Hopkins. They lose their whole starting roster, though. I know the vibe behind Providence was a little bit of a luck box last year, kind of won some close games, shot quality, luck. It's whatever you want to make of it. Ed Cooley, I think he's a good coach. I think he might get a little bit disrespected, but I think he knows what he's doing as a head coach. So Providence should have high expectations again. We saw what they did last year, just ran through the Big East. So what do you make of Providence before we get to UConn?
Yeah, I mean, Noah Locke was a great addition over there. I really like what they have. I think they're going to be not as great as last year, but they're still going to be a really good team. Maybe like a 5, 6, 7 seed in the NCAA tournament. They should be competing every game in the Big East. There should be a lot of really close games like they had last year, but I don't know if they're going to be as lucky as they were last year. I really like what they have. They play TCU tomorrow. That's going to be a tough one. They did lose both those games in Connecticut against SLU and Miami, but they did battle in both of them. So it's going to be interesting. Ed Cooley's a great coach. I think Providence that's a tough place to play. The Dunk's probably one of the most difficult places to play in the country, yes, let alone the Big East. They have great atmospheres there. Not many teams are going to go into Providence and win games. There's going to be a lot of really close games. They're just not going to be as great as last year, but they're still going to be a really good team that's going to make the NCAA tournament.
All right, Connecticut, and don't worry, we're not going to go 6 to 7 teams in every conference, but just these Power 5 conferences, there's a lot of teams we want to touch on. Connecticut, to be honest, I didn't even include them in this outline, but we have to touch on them. I didn't love their roster when I looked at it preseason. To be honest, to get ECU transfer and Newton, but Sonogo, obviously one of the better big men in the country. And I was hearing a lot of buzz about this team may be one of the better shooting teams in the country with Connecticut. I'm like, all right, this is bullshit. Look 3 weeks into the season, this team can light it up from outside, and we know what Sonogo is down low. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say I'm like not high on Connecticut Huskies, but like this team is impressing me early, and I know they're probably impressing you too.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Adama Sonogo has been outstanding. There was a lot of talk in the offseason that he improved his he pulled his shooting out a little bit. Now he's making threes, which is just insane, and he's a huge dude. And I mean, they're doing a great job over there. They just won that Phil Knight Invitational, beat Oregon, Alabama, and Iowa State. And that Iowa State game wasn't even close.
No.
Just Iowa State just coming off that UNC win. So, I mean, like you mentioned, Newton. I mean, Joey Calcaterra even coming off I believe he's coming off the bench. I like him coming over from San Diego. He's been one of the sleeper players in the whole country, just one of the best 6 men in the whole country. But UConn's really impressed me. I think they're going to be up there towards the top of the Big East. I hope they're back to their old days. They're going to be a fun team. They've been through a really tough stretch already and really impressed.
So who's your pick to win the Big East?
I don't know. Maybe UConn. Maybe Creighton. I mean, they're really up for grabs. Who knows? The league's always super crazy. You can never really tell in non-conference who's going to win it. I mean, poor Villanova. Yeah, Villanova. I wouldn't even throw Villanova out of there because they haven't had Cam Whitmore. And I think Cam Whitmore's, if he played the whole season, not only would they still be ranked, not only would they probably be undefeated, I think he's the best freshman in the country. And I think he's a top 10 pick in the NBA draft. I saw him play a couple times in high school, and I've honestly never been so impressed by a player before. I think that he could be a really big deal. If he comes back at the right time, they could make a run and be towards the top there in the Big East. But as of now, I'd probably go with the Creighton.
I'm gonna go with X. I like their roster. I like their front court in the Big East, how physical it is, and that's a big factor for me. So, but I could definitely see Creighton. I bet X to win it. That's like 6-1. I think those are pretty good odds. So with that roster, ran with the Zags. So I'm gonna ride with the X for now. The team I'm gonna be fading this year is Marquette. They return like no scoring. I know Shaka is a great coach. Say what you want to say about Shaka, but I don't love their roster. I don't see them competing with the upper teams in this Big East. And they're a team that will get respected by the bookmakers, so you're going to get some lines to bet against them. So I like Marquette as a team to fade. What about you?
Georgetown, but I bet the lines are going to be way too big to bet against
them.
Oh,
yeah. Well, for sure, Georgetown. Fade them every game.
Yeah, probably DePaul. I mean, who's Butler or Marquette's playing someone tonight? Baylor, right?
Baylor. They're plus 5.5.
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting.
I don't fair line. I'm staying away from that game.
I didn't know how to read that one, but I think Georgetown Butler on the road playing at Hinkle is a whole different thing. I don't think Butler's going to be too great. They're going to be a team to probably fade. I mean, the Georgetown and DePaul lines are just going to be too huge. I'm thinking Butler will play some games close. I'm not that huge on their coach. I would probably fade Butler.
Okay, we'll move on to the Big Ten. One of the final conferences that's going to take the most time. Start with Indiana, one of my favorite teams in the entire country. Trayce Jackson-Davis on my wooden list, on everyone's wooden list. He should be at least. Him and Race Thompson, one of the best front courts in the country. And question mark on that backcourt. I know there's some talent with the freshmen, but it's a question mark. We don't really know what we're getting yet. Lose Parker Stewart. I think Indiana should be the Big Ten favorite. Maybe not after what Purdue just did, but I think they should be a top 2. I think Indiana's got a great season ahead of them.
Yeah, I mean, Trayce Jackson-Davis is one of the best players in the country, so I think that him coming back was huge for them. I think they'll be up there towards the top of the Big Ten all year. It's usually close up there towards the top. I think they're going to be one of maybe like 4 teams up there towards the top. They also have Race Thompson back. That's a huge one. Miller Kopp, nice off the bench. Xavier Johnson's probably going to be their top producer at guard coming over from Pitt. I really do like what they have. I just don't know exactly Trayce Jackson-Davis is going to battle down low, but outside of him, it's going to be tough if a team has multiple big men. It's going to be fun to watch them play like Michigan, but I feel like a team against a team like Purdue. I don't know if he's going to do too well against Zach Edey. But I think that they're going to be up there towards the top. I really like what Indiana has. They won that game against Xavier. They have a tough game against UNC on Wednesday. That's going to be a fun one. It's really going to show how good Trace Jackson Davis is going up there against Armando Bacot.
How do you feel about Mike Woodson? Because I personally don't like him at all.
I think he's a good coach. I mean, I didn't know any. I don't think many people knew much coming into last year about him, but he wins big games. He wins big games. I don't know. I mean, he's been better than the last couple guys Indiana's had so far. Indiana's really struggled to even make the NCAA tournament. They struggled last year, but I think that they're in probably the best spot they've been in since the late Tom Crean days or the mid Tom Crean days. So I like what he's doing to this program so far. I don't know about the long term. I don't know too much about him because, he just came straight from the NBA, but I've been impressed so far.
Yeah, I hate him in late game situations. I feel like he's always doing something wrong. But we'll move on to University of Maryland Terrapins. Great start to the season. Hakeem Hart, Dante Scott return, two guys that could be the spark plug. I think Hakeem Hart is the X factor for this team. A few transfers also. I'll let you go on a little tangent about UMD because you're a Maryland guy. So how do you think Kevin Willard, obviously, Seton Hall coach, how do you think Maryland will fare this year?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I went to the Maryland game on Friday. They played Cop, and I saw Hakeem Hart's first big game. It was against St. Peter's, out of all teams, actually. And people wanted to run him out of town at the beginning, and it's kind of interesting to see how much people love him now. But no, freaking Julian Reese, Juju Reese. He's done a great job this year. I mean, he's keeps growing. He's getting better and better. He hustles a lot. Kevin Willard gets on him in practice. I was listening to the coach's show last week. Sometimes he won't hustle in practice, but I mean, he hustles down the court and does an amazing job. It's gonna be interesting when they play Illinois on Friday. He's going up against Meyer from Baylor. I think that's going to be a struggle for him. I think that they're probably going to lose that game. It's going to be tough because they don't have much size. Dante Scott's great in the backcourt. They don't have much size. So it's going to be tough against the bigger teams in the league. But there was no expectations on this Maryland team this year, and Kevin Willard's come in and he's done a really good job so far. They blew out both those teams in that tournament in Connecticut. It was Miami and SLU, two really good teams this year. So, I mean, they've already exceeded many people's expectations in College Park, and I think that Kevin Willard, as of now, was the right hire. Mark Turgeon never blew out teams in non-conference. He'd have large leads, and then they'd come back. Teams would come back. But, against teams like Niagara and Binghamton, they just absolutely smoked them. Kevin Willard was mad they won by 25. At Maryland, they'd be happy to win by double digits during the last couple Turgeon years. So it's really nice to see what Willard's doing over there.
Yeah, great coach. I'm going to miss him at Hall, but I think the vibes are high in College Park. I think they could have a good season. All right, Ohio State. You watching Ohio State this year, you're going to be very shocked to see this roster compared to what you've seen the last few seasons. Losing Liddell, Young, Branham, and Wheeler is just a different team for Ohio State. They get a few guys, and they're kind of changing their dynamic as a whole team. Went to the second round of the tournament last year. Zed Key is really the biggest returner that they have, and Zed Key is not a guy. He's not the guy who would just take over. How do you think Ohio State will fare?
Yeah, I think that they're going to be okay. They got Sean McNeil coming in from WVU too. Isaiah Likely is there too, I believe. But they look. I mean, they played San Diego State pretty well in Maui. They won the next two games. I saw them play Loyola in the first. Well, I saw them also in the second round of the NCAA tournament, but I really looked at them close in that Loyola game. I feel like they play more to the style of the other team. Chris Holtmann does a great job as a coach. It's going to be interesting to see how Ohio State fares. They play Duke in that ACC Big Ten Challenge, so that's another test to see how they do.
Revenge game for Duke.
Yeah, that's a revenge game for Duke. I mean, I'm kind of shocked they're in the top 25 this week. I think that they're a good team. But, I mean, they're probably an NCAA tournament team, maybe 7 through 10, 11 range. I don't think they're anything too special.
Yeah, I think if Justice Suing can have a year and prove to be the talent that he was supposed to, they could be good because Isaiah Likely is just a literal linebacker who was just going to play defense. Of course, the one time I bet against Ohio State, he makes like 2 threes, and like first time he's like ever done that in his career, whatever. Mm-hmm. So Ohio State going to be tough, always going to be tough to play in Columbus. Penn State, one of my favorite teams, like in the entire Big Ten, and what they're doing to start this season, like makes me not want to bet them because I'm like, okay, the shooting is going to regress, but it's also what I'm expecting to at a certain level, not this good. They play at Clemson tonight. They have a great roster. I just love the transfers that they got, Funk and from Bucknell and Winter from Drexel, and we know what they have with the other guys that they've already had in the roster. So Penn State, what do you think they'll do this year?
Yeah, I saw them play Virginia Tech in the Charleston Classic. You know, it's insane. If they're able to put up about 15 3-pointers a game, they're going to be set because teams don't score that much in the Big Ten. And I've been really impressed. You know, like you said, they play Clemson tonight. I've seen both those teams. I had absolutely no idea how to read that game because I feel like Clemson hasn't been fully healthy yet. They kind of stink. Yeah. But Penn State really – I mean, they really haven't proved all too much, but I think that they could be a really good team if they continue hitting those threes. They beat Furman in the first round there, and they beat Colorado State. But they've kind of been close throughout the rest of them. And I know they blew out Winthrop and Loyola, but it's not like anything too special. They're up 10-3 right now in Clemson, so that's pretty nice. But, you know.
I like that Lundy and Dredd combo. Like, they're like two big wings / forwards that they're kind of like a weird – combo like that. Very unique, I would say. Not many teams have that type of combo in those guys. Michi Johnson also, he's out though, so I don't know for how long he's going to be out. He's in a boot now. I think Penn State will turn some heads this year because you don't see Penn State as a basketball school. So at least to the public eye, I think they will do a good job this season. Great coach. All right, Rutgers, team that lost in the first 4 last year to Notre Dame. They returned Kalen McConnell and Paul Mulcahy and Cliff Amore, who could be one of the better big men in the Big Ten. Also, add Cam Spencer from Loyola. Brother was Pat Spencer, lacrosse legend, now with Golden State, I believe, maybe in the G League. So
I think he's with the Wizards.
Wizards now? Yeah.
He might be with the Go-Go. So.
Yeah, something like that. How do you think Rutgers will fare this year?
Yeah,
I think they're going to look at.
Yeah, I like Rutgers. You know, there was talk in the preseason that they kind of struggled offensively, but they're putting up their points and they're still playing a really strong defense. They do a great job over there. Cam Spencer, like you mentioned, coming over from Loyola, he's done really well, about 18 points per game. His brother Pat, obviously a great player. That family's super athletic. Boys Latin kids, Baltimore. It's been really impressive. Cliff Omoruyi comes back over there in the front court. They got Mulcahy, who's he hasn't played every game, but I know. I mean, Georgetown always competes. They'll always battle. I think they'll be towards the middle of the league. They'll probably still be over 500 and make the NCAA tournament, but I'm not expecting like top of the league for Rutgers. I still think that they're going to be a great team.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of buzz about this Derek Simpson kid. He's a freshman from South Jersey. Kind of went under the radar, but I live in Jersey, so I've been hearing that like this kid is the real deal. He's averaging 10 points already and is kind of came out of nowhere. Like he was one of their bigger recruits, but he wasn't really highly touted. He's already averaging 10 points. I know it's a non-conference, but that's impressive as a true freshman to just come in there and do that. So Rutgers is always a team, one of the hardest places to play in the entire country at the rack. So, all right, we'll move on to Illinois. Another team that I didn't love their roster coming in, but I wouldn't even say they've been that impressive. I feel like they're doing what they should have done to that horrendous schedule they've played already. They played literally no one to start the season except for their most recent game, I think. Add Terrence Shannon from Texas Tech, but they lose the entire roster: Kofi Coburn, Alfonso Plummer, Trent Frazier, Grandison, and Curbelo, just like everyone. Sky Moore came in, one of the higher recruits. But what do you think of Illinois is going to do this year?
Yeah, take out those games that they played in Vegas against UCLA and Illinois, which they won both of them by 9 points. That schedule's been terrible. I mean, Eastern Illinois is going to be one of the worst teams in the country. Kansas City's they lost to a non-D1. Monmouth's just been horrendous. They're trying to get everyone to kind of mold together. They're really young, and Lindenwood's a new D1 team. So it's going to be interesting. They play Syracuse tonight. Syracuse has had its own struggles. But, you know, I like Illinois. I don't think that they're going to be too bad. Terrence Shannon's been great, averaging about 20 points per game. Meyer hasn't really done all that much. coming over from Baylor. I think that he's going to be a really tough big man. He's going to be one of the best big men in the league, in my opinion. They got Epps, Melendez, Dinja, and Brad Underwood's a great coach. So I think that they're going to be up there towards the top of the Big Ten once again. I'm not expecting maybe a Final Four team out of them, but I could very well see them making it to the second weekend. This non-conference schedule hopefully picks up. They got Syracuse, Syracuse, and they play the Big Ten game. Texas, Mizzou. It's going to be interesting to see how they fare against Texas.
Yeah.
But I think that they're going to be pretty decent.
That Meyer transfer was one of the weirder ones I've seen. Yeah, I was kind of confused, but it is what it is. He's there now. All right, Michigan State, they returned 0 double-digit scorers, and they're a team that just objectively struggles to score, but they've looked strong to start the year so far. They're going to be gritty. They're going to be tough. They got a few guys that can light it up. How do you think Michigan State will fare this year? I know, obviously, Tom Izzo.
Yeah, Tom Izzo, people weren't expecting much out of them in the preseason, but Tom Izzo's got the boys to play. They battled Gonzaga on that aircraft carrier, and they were leading pretty much the whole game, and they blew it there at the end. Then they went and they beat Kentucky in the Champions Classic in double overtime. Just kept battling. They beat Villanova. They were battling Alabama. They beat Oregon. They had to sweat one out against a really good Portland team. And then they go to Notre Dame tomorrow. So they've had their fair share of challenges, and they've been up for them. They've been battling every game. Tom Izzo's showing that he can still coach, that he still has really good teams. Walker comes over from Northeastern. He's done a great job, 15.5 points so far. Joey Hauser's been there, feels like, for a couple of years now, even after transferring over from Marquette. He's been doing a great job. They got Sissoko down low. I think Michigan State's really surprised me this year. They're one of those teams that they've probably surprised a lot of people.
Yep.
I think that they're going to be up there towards the top. That's just what Izzo does. Izzo competes for championships. He has his teams compete. He has them perform really well. I really like what he's done so far.
Yeah, they've been definitely turning my head so far this season. Before we get on to my winner, I was going to mention Purdue and what they've done to start the season. Did not love their roster early in the season. I know they had their young roster. There's 2 freshmen who are one of the better players in Indiana. Make what you want out of that. Those guys can play, though. And Zach Edey, obviously one of the better big men in the country, 7'6", can't guard him. And if they can get Zach Edey rolling and Matt Painter will play him for more than 15 to 20 minutes a game, this team can go far. They're a team that I would hate to play. They're just those two white freshman point guards. They just do everything right. They make the right pass. They hit their shots, and they're clinical. They're not gonna be flashy, but they're just a team that is pesky and annoying and tough to bet against. And Zach Edey gets the ball down low to automatic 2 points. So I didn't even mention them, but Purdue, like in my preseason stuff, but Purdue looks awesome to start the season.
Yeah, Zach Edey's such a mismatch down low, and Matt Painter's one of the best coaches in the nation. It's just like he keeps getting slept on, but he continues having these guys in. Foster Lore's brother's coming in there. He's came in there, and he's done an amazing job. It's like he just continues to find these Indiana kids, and they continue to be at the top of the Big Ten. And Purdue's been one of the best programs in the country over the last couple of years. I feel like they haven't gotten the love that they very well deserve, and they're going to be right up there towards the top again. They have who do they play? And they play Florida State, so that should be another win. They're in the ACC Big Ten Challenge. Fingers crossed they don't jinx anything.
They're going to lay like 20. They're going to be like minus 25 in that game.
You got to think, it's going to be bigger than the Maryland Louisville line tonight. So it's going to be interesting. They play Davidson next month. They play Hofstra too, so they actually
play Davidson. I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, they play him in Indy, so it's gonna be the little brother show there.
Wow.
Foster Lore's done a great job so far at Davidson this year. He's done a great job he did a great job last year.
Yeah.
But with Matt McKillop now, he's continued taking that leadership role. So it's gonna be interesting because they play 2 really good guard teams in Davidson and Hofstra. They have the size match down low. So I think there's a good chance Purdue could go undefeated heading into January.
Who is your winner in the Big Ten?
As of now, I'd probably say Purdue. Zach Edey's just so difficult to guard. It's kind of I don't know if I would have said that a couple weeks ago, but he's playing like the best player in the country. Him and Adama Sanogo, 2 of the best players in the country. So I would probably go with Purdue. Matt Painter, like I mentioned, he's just such a great coach.
I'm gonna go with IU. I'm gonna stick to my guns. And I wouldn't say it's confident. What Indiana, what Purdue did this past weekend in the tournaments. It was so impressive, blowing out Zags, blowing out Duke. So impressive. But if IU can just commit to that double race and trace on Zach Edey, and the guards can out athletic those Purdue guards, then maybe we're in for something. But so I'm gonna stick with my guns. I'm gonna go with IU. A team I'm gonna be fading is Nebraska. They lose their literal only two good players that they've had the last 2 years, and they don't return much. Who's the team that you fade?
Minnesota. I mean, I really don't understand why. I'm not a fan of what Ben Johnson's doing over there. Really don't like their roster. They've been struggling. I was shocked they were playing it close with Virginia Tech yesterday. I think Nebraska might be able to jump them. I feel like they're going to be a little bit respected on the lines. I'd be fading Minnesota here early.
Yeah, thankfully I had Minnesota plus 12 last night, and I was very deserving of a stupid, annoying cover that shouldn't have covered. And I got it with that Minnesota last night. So, but they're not a good basketball team. They just cannot score the ball. So, Minnesota's ugly. I agree with you on that fade. All right, two more big conferences. Then we get into the fun stuff. We're gonna start with the Pac-12, who objectively is a mid-major conference. They're just bad. All right, Arizona State, just a team that has talent all over the roster. Hurley's on the hot seat, and he has the talent. It's now or never for Arizona State. Bagley just got suspended again. Desmond Cambridge from Nevada. They just have talent all over. I know you probably like this Arizona State roster. How do you think they'll gel together?
Yeah, I really like the roster, but I mean, who the hell knows what's happening over there? It started 6-1. They lost that game against Texas Southern at Texas Southern. They were still getting votes in the AP poll after that. I don't understand how that was working. But, they have a great roster. The Horn, Bagley situation's wild. I don't understand what's really happening.
Did you see his tweet today?
Yeah, they suspended him again for apologizing.
Right. Yeah.
It's ridiculous. I mean, Arizona State's a just unique school to begin with, but Desmond Cambridge, Washington, I really like what they have. I mean, they've impressed so far outside of that game. They killed Michigan. There was everyone was so high on Michigan, and Hunter Dickinson went out there, said they were going to win by about 20. They ended up losing by about 25. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. They play Stanford on Sunday. They open Pac-12 play here early. That's going to be a test there. But I think that they could be right there on the bubble. Like you mentioned, it's kind of a mid-major league with the high major label. So it's going to be tough for them to maybe get more than 3 teams in the NCAA tournament. Like a UCLA and Arizona, those are the only ones off the top of my head right now that I think are complete locks making the tournament in this league.
All right, the next team we will talk about is Arizona. Kirk Kursa, Courtney Ramey, Tubelis. Tubelis is the only double-digit scorer they return, but that roster is legit, and they play together. They're going to push the pace. What they've done there the last year has been super impressive with the new coach, and I think Arizona has another ceiling year in them. They lose, obviously, Benedict, who was their best player, and he's playing in the NBA right now. There's no replacing him, but they have a good roster, and they will compete. They should be the favorite in the Pac-12. And they've looked good so far. So, and you already said Arizona State is a sure tournament team, so I'm sure you're pretty high on them as well. Arizona, not Arizona State.
Arizona. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's a better offense in the country. They put up so many points. It feels like damn near every game they're putting up 100 points. They're just super good. It felt like they ran through Maui. That Cincinnati game was never close until the end where they made that little backdoor cover. They smoked a really good San Diego State team. That Creighton game was a battle, but they ended up pushing through there at the end. But yeah, I love what they have. Courtney Ramey coming over. He's done a great job. Ballo, Tubelis, creating that front court. Kirk Kursa is a great guard. He can shoot all over the place. Cedric Henderson, I didn't even realize until last week.
Yeah, from Campbell.
Yeah, I love him. He's a really good player.
Good player.
I think Arizona, there's a chance. UCLA is going to be a battle, but I wouldn't be too shocked if Arizona flirted with the unbeaten record just throughout the season.
Just wait till Jermaine Cousinard comes back, and then I know you know. I know
Jermaine Cousinard. He was a Gamecock. I don't know if I think that he's going to be that big for Oregon. I think he'll be a big piece. But they have Tennessee and Indiana left in this non-conference, and then they just pretty much play Pac-12 teams. So if they can get over and beat Indiana over there in Vegas, beat Tennessee in Tucson, I wouldn't be too shocked if they were the number one team in the country. I honestly thought they should have been number one team in the country this week, and just run the table. There's a chance that they could run the table if everything goes right. They got over there, the guy from Gonzaga.
Super. Yeah, amazing. Yeah. And all right, next team. And I know, so before Nick and I did the show, I sent him a little outline, and I don't know if he read over, but if he read it over, he probably saw I put Cal on this. He's like, why did I put Cal on this? I'm just going to talk for a second. I hate Cal so much. I don't know why I put him on this outline. They're the worst team in the country. Fade them every single game. Devin Askew, I thought he was going to be some sort of a spark plug coming from Kentucky, transferring, going to back home, maybe show a little. They suck.
They're terrible. They
suck. I bet them 4 times already this season, and I've lost against them every single time. I just need to vent for a second because I hate Cal. They have nothing. I'm sorry. I just hate Cal so much. They're not a Power 6 team. If you want to add anything about this Cal slander, please go ahead because I just hate them so much. That's all I have to say about Cal.
Yeah. I'm shocked that Mark Fox is still there. He's really struggled over the last couple of years. Pathetic. Yeah. None of these games have really been close. Like the UC San Diego game, maybe it was close, but they should still go in there and they should beat them. I mean, come on. Clemson beat them pretty handily. They came out with some of the lines already tomorrow. I mean, I could see maybe just because the hope there are 7.5. USC's only a 7.5 favorite, 7.5 point favorite against Cal tomorrow. I don't think I'm going to be biting the bullet there. I think maybe it's like a 69-62 game. But yeah, Cal's a mess. Cal and Louisville, 2 of the worst teams in the country. I
want them to play.
I love Berkeley. I love what they could do there, but they're not doing anything right now.
How can you be that bad at recruiting? No. It's so frustrating. Well, I can't talk about Cal Bears anymore. We'll move on to UCLA. Tiger and Jaime are back. They lose Juzang and Jules Bernard, but they got 2 elite freshmen, and they're looking elite to start the season. My thing with UCLA is, can Jaime Jaquez prove to score the basketball and take a step forward? Because we know what they can do. We saw it 2 years ago and even a little bit last year. Elite program, great coach. What do you think about UCLA?
Yeah, Mick Cronin's went over there. He's done a great job. Didn't really live up to hype last year because they made that run to the Final Four the year before. Yeah. But I still think that they're going to be up there towards the top of the league. I don't know if they're going to be like a Final Four team again, but he's got them competing every year. They struggled in Vegas in that tournament that Illinois was in. They lost both those games. I want to say they lost the other one to Baylor. Yeah, they lost to Baylor. But they've got 2 tests this week heading into Pac-12 play. It's going to be interesting. They play at Stanford Thursday night. Then they play Oregon Sunday at 5 o'clock. So it's going to really prove a lot there. I think that they could be a really good team. They also go to Maryland. They play Kentucky in the CBS Sports Classic. So they're going to get battle tested. And that's going to be good when it comes to games against Arizona in February and late January. I think that they're going to be a pretty good team. I don't know, they aren't going to win the league over Arizona, but I think that there's clear 1-2.
You mean Oregon?
No, I'm just saying in Arizona. Oregon, I could see Oregon beating them. I don't know if they're so high on Jermaine Couisnard. I don't think he's that great.
No, it's just I like the roster, and we'll get there. But we have to go to that UCLA Maryland game. I think that'll be fun.
I'd be down.
All right, so the next team, Oregon Ducks. I love their roster. Just reading down the roster, Will Richardson, 14 points a game. Jermaine Couisnard averaged 12 when he was healthy at South Carolina. Quincy Guerrier. Then they get Kalel Ware, 7-foot freshman stud. And then Dante, who's been one of their better centers for the past 2 years. But they look bad to start the season, and my preseason take is just already dwindling. They're very injured. They have a great coach, but I just love their roster, and I can't get over it. But so it's just talent. I don't know why I like Oregon so much. When they're all healthy, they can run this Pac-12. But will they be all healthy? I think Couisnard is going to come back late January, and they've already lost some guys early. Who knows if they'll all be together? I think I might be in the wrong for this Oregon take, but I think there could be one of the better teams in this conference.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think that could be third, but I don't think that they're going to be competing in the top 2. I really do like that roster. Like you mentioned, Dana Altman's a great coach, but they've really struggled this year, 3-4. They did beat Villanova. Villanova's a mess right now. They don't really have much. Lost to Michigan State, lost to UConn, lost to Houston. So they're on a 4-game losing streak.
Lose to UC Irvine too, I think, right?
They've won 3 or 4. But yeah, they lost to UC Irvine. UC Irvine's a good team, but I still think that
bad loss at home now. Yeah.
Bad loss at home. Yeah, they got 2 really tough matchups this week. We mentioned that UCLA one. They're playing a Washington State team. Kyle Smith's been a great coach over there the last couple of years. So it's going to be interesting. And then they play Nevada. Nevada's really shocked me this year. They've done a great job. Gerard Lucas. He knows Oregon because he was at Oregon State. And this man, I can just keep going down. This is a tough non-conference schedule. They play UC Riverside, who always seems to pick off a Pac-12 team. They haven't done it this year. Jonte Leggins has done a great job over there at Portland. They should have won a couple games this weekend and only ended up 1-1.
Portland also?
Yeah, they play Portland Saturday, December 17th. I think that could be a really high-scoring one.
Oh, that's December 17th is the day. You saw all the games on that day, I think?
I'm going to be in Chicago that day. Yeah, it's like Wyoming, Dayton. It's going to be there. Towson plays. Tulane plays. I'm not going to go to DePaul, Northwestern, but I'm flying out to Chicago, catching 4 games that day. I'm really excited for that day. Really excited. That's a loaded slate.
So who is your winner of this conference? Arizona?
Yeah, Arizona.
Okay, I'm gonna stick with my guns. I'm going with my Ducks. I almost bet them at 7-1 to start the season, but as soon as I saw Kushner was going to be out for an extended period of time, I didn't bet it. But so I'm not putting my money down on it. But I think Oregon will win this conference. Not really. My fade is Oregon State. They returned just 4 players from what was a bad team, and their 5 starters averaged about 4.5 points last season. They don't have much production. I don't know how they ran with Duke, to be honest, but it's college basketball. So, but I think in a season-long level, Oregon State will just be bad and be the fade for the season.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think. I think Oregon State probably too, but people like Vegas is maybe going to look into that Duke game too much, and they're going to look.
I hope so.
Yeah, that they beat Tulsa to begin the season.
Tulsa's bad too.
Tulsa's really bad too, but they have some of these interesting results. Like they lost to Portland State twice, but Oregon State
got killed the second time, right?
Yeah, it was last Sunday in Portland. But they just
played twice.
Yeah, Portland State lucked out there. They got 2 Pac-12 wins, but I mean,
that's hilarious.
Because
they're not good either.
No, 3 Portland State's not great either. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
3 wins in November is going to make people, maybe Vegas, look like, oh, maybe they won't be as bad as last year, but I really don't think they're that good.
We'll move on to the SEC. Oh, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. They play Texas A&M in a couple of weeks. I just think they're going to get exposed at A&M.
Oregon State consensus fade, so can consensually fade them. We'll start with Alabama. They return 3 double-digit scorers: Javon Quinterly, Mark Sears from Ohio. Love Mark Sears, and Welsh from St. Bonnie's. They lose Jaden Shackelford and some other guys. I think Alabama. We know what we're getting from Alabama. It is play fast, shoot 3-pointers, and score at the rim. If they're hot, they can beat anyone. If they're not hot, they will lose games. They're going to be a tough game. Brandon Miller has looked awesome, one of the highly touted freshmen. So this is one of the better Bama squads, I think, of the last few years. Like when you're looking at a roster, we saw what they did 2 years ago. They went pretty deep. Well, I like Alabama this year. So what are you thinking? This is a Braves hat, by the way, not an Alabama hat.
Yeah, I think they're even getting slept on right now. They've really dominated Longwood to open the season. They picked apart Liberty and Darius McGee. So those 2, they went into South Alabama and beat them. Another really good result. And then at the Phil Knight Invitational this weekend, they looked really good. They beat Michigan State, who's been impressive so far this year. They beat North Carolina in quadruple overtime. Nate Oates is a great coach. I really like what he's done over there. They've been putting up points. They've been dominating teams. I think that they're going to be right up there, top 3 of the SEC heading into conference play.
Agreed. Okay, Arkansas, you can't really go on a yearly basis. No, you have to go on a year-by-year basis because it's a new team every single year. But that's Eric Musselman's way. He brings on the transfers, brings on the recruits. He has one of the best recruiting classes in the entire country. Nick Smith, the number 1 player in the country, made his debut last night, a whopping 2 points. So what are you going to make of this Arkansas team? I don't really think you have any strong takes on this team because it's a lot of not knowing.
Yeah, there's a lot of transfers coming in, a lot of recruits coming in. So, who knows? But, I mean, they just have so many guys.
Yeah.
Maybe towards the end of the season, that could be a problem. That could be a problem in the locker room. People are like, I'm not getting the time that I deserve.
Right.
I think they have maybe one of the deepest, if not the deepest roster in the whole country. Ricky Council last night, he was really strong at Wichita at times. Sometimes he struggled. I watched his brother a lot at UMBC. He's somehow their best player right now. And they have all these guys, the Brazil. They got the Mitchell brothers coming over
from Rhode Island, right?
Maryland, Rhode Island. Yeah, they've always been a problem. They've got to come together. They've always got to go to the same place. Their mom's kind of got a loud mouth. So, I mean, it's a very well-known topic around Maryland over these last couple of years that, like, they were a problem. And that's kind of what started the beginning of the downfall for Turgeon. It's going to be interesting. I feel like Muss is a great enough coach where hopefully he'll just eliminate those distractions. But they have so many people on the team that it could ultimately cost them. But I think that they're going to be up there towards the top. They should be winning pretty much every game in the SEC, be competing for a top 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. Arkansas is a great team. It's going to be interesting to see if they can keep away these distractions just from so many great players on the roster.
Well, Nick Smith, I feel like I don't think he was injured. Was he injured, or I thought it was something else that he didn't play the first X amount of games?
I thought it was injury. I'm not too sure. I know
I saw different things. I read that it was like an injury, but it wasn't. It was listed as an injury, but it was something more than that, which could be a thing because we know like he could be that number 1 recruit. What's going on? We'll see what happens in Arkansas. I mean, I think Brazil from Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
He was on that Missouri team who was just like really bad, but he's just he's kind of like an NBA guy. That's the way he's built and the way he's played. So I think that roster is going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of hecticness, and they could beat anyone. They could lose to anyone with all that going on. All right, Auburn, another fun roster. I think besides St. John's, they might have the most electric backcourt duo opposed to trio, which is going to be Houston. So Auburn has an electric backcourt duo. They get Johnny Broome from Morehead State. Fun roster.
Yeah.
And they look decent to start the season. What do you like about Auburn?
Yeah, I really do like that backcourt. And Johnny Broome coming in there in the front court really solidifies it. He's been one of the best defensive players in the country over the last couple of years. So that's going to be really interesting. I love Bruce Pearl as a coach. I believe that 2020 team where they had those sanctions, that was maybe even one of his best teams ever. They just, they couldn't play up to the full, like couldn't come out every night and play like with their heads on fire because they knew they weren't making the NCAA tournament. But he's always had these great kids coming in. I mean, Alan Flanagan's still there. He's averaging only 8.3 points per game.
He's the X factor.
I think he is the X factor. And they have Zep Jaspers deep down there. They got a really good roster. And
I forgot about Zep Jasper.
Yeah, it's kind of insane how deep these Arkansas, Alabama, and Auburn teams are. I mean, it's kind of crazy to think that Kentucky's a great team, that they aren't even maybe a top 3 roster in the league. The SEC's really improved over these last couple of years with the addition of those 3 coaches. And they've done a great job. I mean, they smoked George Mason. They won that tournament, I want to say in Cancun. Yeah, Cancun. They beat Northwestern and Bradley. And then they beat SLU this weekend.
I think SLU beat themselves, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely down the wire there.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they've been challenging themselves, and they're going to continue to challenge themselves. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they do. They play Colgate, Memphis, Georgia State, USC, Washington to close out non-conference. So it's going to be interesting.
If Alan Flanagan can return to how he was before he got hurt, look out. Look out for this Auburn team. And especially with that backcourt, they're similar to that St. John's backcourt. It's electricity. They are either all or nothing. So they're going to be a fun team. They can run with anyone. Kentucky, returning player of the year, Oscar Tshiebwe's back, along with Willer. That's 20 points per game. And they get transfer from Illinois State, who's looking good to start the season. He's playing more than I thought he would play. So Kentucky has an interesting roster, some new guys, but they're Kentucky. They should be there late in the season. They should be one of the SEC favorites. What else is there to say? Do you think they will perform to those expectations?
Yeah, I think that they're going to be up there towards the top. Reeves has done a great job since coming over from Illinois State. Jacob Toppin keeps getting better and better. Oscar Tshiebwe, obviously player of the year last year. He's done a great job so far, averaging a double-double once again. They got C.J. Frederick, Xavier Wheeler. I mean, that backcourt's just stacked, and that front court's really good too. So I think Kentucky will be up there towards the top. The top 4 of the league is just absolutely insane. I mean, even throw in a Tennessee, maybe they're the top 5, but that top of the SEC is insane. Kentucky just solidifies it, and John Calipari is one of the best coaches in the country. He doesn't get the respect he deserves because he doesn't make it far in the NCAA tournament, but he continues to get these guys to come in. I mean, Kentucky's going to be fine. They're going to be fine. Hopefully, they'll avenge that loss to St. Peter's in the first round last year.
Yeah, they definitely need to do that. All right, we'll talk about Ole Miss next. A team that has talent and could be elite. Will Deshaun Ruffin play ever? Because this kid just does not play. And he is one of the better players in that entire conference, and they have an electric backcourt if he is there. So and they also add Theo Akuba from Louisiana, I believe. Louisiana. Right? Am I right?
I got no clue.
Theo Akuba was the defensive player of the year in the Sun Belt. I just forget I think it was Louisiana. At Ole Miss, he is so they have a good 1 to 5 if Deshaun Ruffin can play. They also add Jay McInnes from Jackson State. He averaged 13 points a game there. So they have talent, but the SEC is so deep. They're a team that will upset someone though. So if Ruffin plays, but I don't know if he'll ever play because he's just prolifically hurt.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't know if they're NCAA tournament team. They're probably an NIT team. I mean, Kermit does a great job getting these transfers coming from the Southern SEC schools. Like you mentioned, I love Javius McInnes coming over from Jackson State. He's been great over there the last couple of years. I always thought that they get over the hump in the SWAC and maybe make an NCAA tournament, but they weren't able to do it. They lost a lot of that core. They had a great defensive and offensive team over there. I mean, I just don't know about Ole Miss. I think that they're in the middle of the SEC. They're going to be better than South Carolina. That's the bar here, sadly, being better than South Carolina.
You have your football team now, so.
Yeah, at least we have a football team.
Yeah. All right, we'll talk about Mississippi State to round out the SEC. The only guy they returned, notably, I would say, is Tolu Smith, he's a great player. They have some transfers, though. I'm saying that's the only return. They have some transfers. Deshaun Davis from Oregon State, Ty Stevenson from Southern Miss, Eric Reed from SEMO, and Jamal Harton from Albany. They lose Iverson Molinar, who was literally one of my favorite players in the entire country last year. And they lose Brooks from North Carolina transfer to Mississippi State. He didn't even do much. Tolo can be elite. They obviously have Chris Johns from New Mexico State, great coach. Do they have the talent to run this SEC rosters? No, but I think they have the pieces to be a competitive team all season long. They are 6-0, 7-0 right now, and Rothstein tweeted their upcoming schedule today, and they look like they're going to be 12-0 heading to conference play if they can beat Drake. So besides that, they may turn some heads coming into December and January. Yeah,
that Drake game's tough, but what they've been able to do so far is just drown teams out with their defense. Highest scoring team so far has been Marquette with 55 points. They've kept an A&M Corpus Christi team who returns everyone from a tournament team last year to 44 points. Akron was a great front court to 54 at a neutral site game in Philly. South Dakota, I think, is going to be great this year, 42 points. I thought South Dakota had a chance to win that game heading into the game, and they just never had a chance, and they just drowned them defensively. Utah only 49 points. They've been great defensively this year, and I think that can translate into SEC play, and they can compete for an NCAA tournament bid. Like you mentioned, Tolu Smith's great. I'm a really big fan of DJ Jeffries. I think they got a really good team over there in Starkville. They're going to be a lot better than people put them out to be. Chris Jans is a great coach. It was a great hire for them. He's a winner. He's a winner, and that's what they're going to do over there in Starkville.
Okay, that rounds out the Power Six. But before we get into that, who do you think is winning the SEC?
Arkansas. Give me Arkansas because they have the best roster. Just who knows if they keep everything off the court. But I really like Musselman. I like what he's doing over there. I'm going to go Arkansas right now.
I'm going to go with Kentucky to avenge some of that last season. Not a very sharp, pretty pick, but I'll go with Kentucky. And your team to fade, I think we're going to be aligned here. Who is it?
I can't say South Carolina. I can't say South Carolina.
Then we're definitely aligned.
For real? I'm not big on A&M. A lot of people are really big on A&M.
We're not. I don't know how they were ranked, to be honest.
I don't understand that either, and I don't understand why people were whining that they didn't make the NCAA tournament last year because I was not that impressed. I don't think they're that good. I don't think they're going to be that good. I've had enough of it. A&M, the same with football. They think they're the best thing in the world. It's like England and soccer. They're so annoying. I don't know how anyone that's not from England can root for England in soccer because they haven't won dick in their life.
Yeah.
But I think A&M, there's going to be a lot of close lines with A&M, and I think that they can't compete with the Auburns, Arkansas, Alabamas, Tennessees, Kentuckys, LSUs, even Floridas of the world. Yeah, I'm not big on Vandy, but
yeah, they lose their guy. So my fade is actually going to be LSU. I thought you were going to say LSU. They have a legit mid-major roster. And they have like a lot of things going on with their scholarships. They had like 2 scholarship players. They had a coach who came in late, a big mess. They've honestly looked decent to start the season, better than I thought. But I think as the season goes along, they're just going to kind of bottom out and be towards the bottom of that. And it's surprising because you look at the LSU roster, and I don't know how they really didn't compile one because that's I would say a decent, not a fairly easier place to recruit to. Maybe not the easiest, but I would say on the top half of being easy to recruit to, and they didn't really do it this past season. So I just think LSU is going to be my team to fade because they're just going to be respected in the lines. That's what I'm getting at. It's easy to say like South Carolina, like a team that's going to be horrible, but I think LSU will get respected in the lines enough to fade them season long.
I have a really interesting development right now. Bellarmine's tied at halftime with Kentucky.
Interesting development. And, okay, Maryland is up by 12 at half. We're good. We're looking good. All right, so that was an hour and a half on the Power 6. Now we head to the fun stuff. Don't get worried because this is our Mona Lisa. This is the best show we're going to do. This is the best show that you guys are going to watch, and we're getting paid for this. So this is what we love to do.
Mm-hmm.
The AAC. We'll start with Dayton. Dayton is a team who return pretty much everyone. They return. What'd you say?
A10.
Oh, what did I say? AAC.
Dayton. Yeah, AAC. There we go.
There we go. I clicked the wrong thing. Okay, A10 Dayton. They return literally everyone. So we're supposed to do the AAC first, but we're here now.
Mm.
They return literally everyone. They're a fringe tournament team. Should contend elite front court. I just think this Dayton roster is awesome, but they look kind of shaky to start the season. What do you think?
Yeah, I love Dayton. They look shaky. Everyone's hurt right now, which absolutely sucks because it seemed like they were getting everyone back for that Bobby Moe game. They had everyone back for that Bobby Moe game. They only beat them by like 9, and then they went down to that tournament and they looked not that good. So, I mean, I don't know if there's really a chance for them to get in that large bid again, especially like one of their biggest games left against Wyoming. Wyoming's had injury problems. They're not having a great start to the season. They got to go into Virginia Tech and beat them. They got to beat Asheville. They got to beat Wyoming. They can't have any bad losses. They need to pretty much run the table in the 8-10. It stinks because we were thinking multi-bid 8-10 once again. SLU's done well so far, but they still have 2 losses. Dayton's 3-4. They have all these super sophomores, great guys. They got Mongolian Mike who can shoot the ball all over the place. He's about he's Eiffel Tower height, and he's just an insane athlete. But I think Dayton's a great team. I still think that they could probably win the league, but they've played themselves out of the NCAA tournament at large bid at this point.
I agree. All right, we'll move on to Duquesne, who is 6-24 last season, but they're turning heads, and they're one of my favorite teams coming into the season. Day Grant from Miami, Ohio, and Tevin Brewer from FIU, 2 legit transfers who are leading the charge so far. Kind of a smaller size team, 1-5, but I like with their explosiveness and what they have done to start the season. They face Santa Barbara tonight. I think that's starting right when we record this.
10. They're up 10.
They're up 10. I have the over. Hopefully it's going well.
37
So what do you think about Duquesne right now?
Yeah, last season was really difficult. Keith Dambrot's a winner. He's a winner. Outside of his first season at Akron, he had 20 wins every year when he was Akron. And that one season he didn't. That first season he had 19 wins. So it's not like it's a drastic fall off or anything. Coach LeBron in high school. The only thing is every year he has a completely new roster. And that was the same this year. So a lot of people were like, how are they going to mesh? Talking to him heading into the offseason, he was like, yeah, I think we'll bounce back. Kind of sucks, they lost Jackie Johnson to UNLV, Primo Spears to Georgetown. Those are supposed to be big pieces. they told me after post game, still a little bitter after it, that they were going to come back. They were really excited for the future of the program. Didn't come back, but like you mentioned, Day Grant, he's shooting the lights out. Tevin Brewer's done a great job. They got Joe Reese, who's kind of banged up right now from Bowling Green, but he's been great in that front court. And they battled Kentucky for a while, so that was impressive. I wasn't expecting them to win by damn near 30 against Montana on the opening night. They did that, and they smoked South Carolina State, beat a really good Colgate team, and probably their biggest test of their seasons right now against UCSB, and they're up 10. I've been watching out of the corner of my eye over here. So
that's your game of choice tonight?
Yeah, I have a lot of money on UMass, but they're up about 8 right now. But I'm a Duquesne fan through and through. Love my Dukes. Really excited to see what they're doing so far. Yeah, I mean they're going to be battle tested. You don't usually see that in a Duquesne non-conference schedule. They got New Mexico State, they got DePaul, they got Winthrop, and then they open conference play at UD. So it's already been better than last year for the Dukes. I'm liking what's happening. I've been yearning for an NCAA tournament bid. My grandfather started working there in 1979. He retired in like 2013. Didn't make a single NCAA tournament, but he had season tickets. Went to every single game. My family lives and dies on the Dukes. My dad gets so hyped up for the A-10 tournament every year. They don't do anything. I'm yearning. This
could be different this year.
I'm hoping it could be different this year. I'm yearning for the day they make the A-10 title. We're all there and we're crying in each other's arms, and then we're going to fucking Portland, Oregon to go watch the NCAA tournament. Nothing will make me more happy than to see Duquesne in the NCAA tournament.
Let's go, Duquesne. And I'm high on them too, so I like what you had to say. All right, we'll move on to George Mason, a team that has kind of high expectations, but they haven't looked great to start the season. Kim English did okay last year in his first season. Josh Oduro, one of the better players in the entire conference, Devontae Gaines and Devin Cooper return. They lose their point guard in X Johnson to Indiana.
Yeah,
Indiana. And so I was high on George Mason to start the season, but it hasn't really come to fruition yet. Obviously, A-10 play hasn't started yet, and Oduro is a guy who can take over games and be one of the better big men. So how are you thinking George Mason fares this year in Kim English's second season?
Yeah, people were giving me crap in the preseason for not having them in the top 25. I mean, I really like Kim English as a person and as a coach, but outside of that Maryland one, they really didn't do all too much last season. Yeah, they finished in 6th or whatever in the A-10, but it wasn't all that impressive. They went to the Paradise Jam. Didn't look all too impressive in any of the games. They got blown out by a really bad BC team. They lost to Belmont and Buffalo, but they've won their games at home. They kept it within 20 against Auburn. I think that they'll be decent. I don't think they're going to be anything too special. This Hofstra game tomorrow is really going to tell a lot. But, yeah, Josh Oduro's been there for a while. He's really nice. Vic Bailey, good player. Ronald Polite. I think once Kim English is really able to implement his recruiting plan, he got hot early and offered a lot of local DMV guys. He needs to do more of that, try to get kids from Baltimore, his hometown, back down there to Fairfax. I think he's a great coach. I think they're a program on the rise. I'm just not too high on them right now. This non-conference is really tough, so hopefully we'll build them up. They play Toledo also
Saturday.
Yeah,
I think I'm gonna head down there for that game.
You should. I love Eagle Bank Arena. It's awesome.
Oh, it's awesome. I went there so much last season. I love that place.
Yeah, it's an awesome place to watch a game. Doc Nix, awesome. He's their band director.
He's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know if you haven't been there, but it's like a really special place to watch a game.
Yeah, they love their hoops.
Yeah, I mean,
all right.
Interesting.
You got more on Mason? You ready to move on?
I'm good.
All right, Loyola Chicago, a new team in this conference, came from the MVC. Ugly to start the season. They return Braden Norris, and they get a Division II transfer, Philip Alston, who scored 20-plus points a game. They lose their MVC decoy, Lucas Williamson. So as a defensive team, losing their best defensive player, heading to a new conference, I can see how it's been ugly so far. They don't really have any guys who are scoring. It's turnovers out the ass. It's just not looking like the Loyola Chicago that we've been loving and seeing the last X amount of years. So how will they fare in this conference, which is a far upgrade from the MVC?
Yeah, I think that they can compete for a double bye in the league. They've really struggled so far. They haven't been putting up points. They had to take Fairleigh Dickinson to overtime of the opener. That Myrtle Beach Invitational was Yeah, not great. That Myrtle Beach Invitational was a shit show. They got blown out by a not-so-good Tulsa team. They lost by 22 to Boise. Like we already talked about A&M, I'm not high on. They lost by 16 against, and then they lost to Harvard. But I like Drew Valentine as a coach. I think they'll bounce back. They got a lot of non-D1 transfers who come in. They should mold and get better before January hits. But, I mean, it's just been a really tough start to the season for Loyola.
Yeah, Loyola is not looking great. Okay, my favorite team in the conference, St. Louis Billikens. They return 3 double-digit scores from last year's roster, plus Javonte Perkins, who missed the majority of the season, averaged close to 20 points a game, and add in Javon Pickett from Missouri. The roster is just so impressive. They have a problem closing out games, though. We saw it against Memphis. They couldn't break a press. And against Auburn a few days ago, they went like 1 for 11 in the second half on free throws. You make, 3-4 of those, that they win the game. So it's if you want to compete, Travis Ford, you got to get these guys going down the stretch. And you're a decent coach. You got the talent. Yuri Collins is an absolute stud. It's the roster's there, the talent's there. I think they have high hopes to win this A10 and to win it and to win the tournament. Maybe get to the second weekend because they have enough talent to do that. You got to figure out how to close games though, St. Louis. And if you're gonna lose now, do it now because this team has the talent to make noise in March. So how do you think St. Louis will do?
Yeah, I love Yuri Collins. He can dish the ball like better than anyone in the whole country. Slew and I, we kind of have beef. They're not big fans of me. NCAA for the A10 tournament last year, I posted something about Jordan Nesbitt, and he was chirping cheerleaders and calling them all these names, and it kind of burnt bridges between Travis Ford and Slew and I, and they're not big fans of the page. But, I like what they have. I think I wasn't too high on them in the preseason. A lot of the guys coming back were injured last year, so who knows how they were going to go. But at this point, they're probably the favorites in the A10 with everyone down for Dayton. Yeah, I mean, they play Southern Illinois on Saturday. That should be a really tough test. That's
like my two favorite mid-majors in the entire country, to be honest.
I love it. This could be a lot of fun.
I love Domask. If you see my tweets, I love Domask. He's my guy.
It's going to be a good battle. Then they play Iona, Boise, Drake. So, I think that they could be flirting for a top 25 spot. At this point, even with the two losses, they lost to Auburn and they lost to Maryland, two top 25 teams.
Fine.
They're fine. They're fine. Yeah. I think, if anything, they're probably outside of St. Mary's and San Diego, one of the only teams in my mind that's going to get an at-large bid at this point.
I can't wait to hear your San Diego stuff when we get there, to be honest, because I need you to enlighten me on them. All right, we're going to move to the first, we're going to pick the winner. Who is your winner in this conference?
I'm still going with Dayton. I mean, if they get healthy before conference play, I think they'll be fine. UD Arena is the toughest place to play in the country. I like what they have. I think that they're going to win the league.
Probably wondering why we didn't mention Davidson. I just honestly don't love their roster. I don't think Foster Loyer is going to be the guy to carry a squad, even though he has done it here and there. I don't think he will full season. I'm going to go with St. Louis. I just gave my whole thing. I think St. Louis is the team to do it. And who is your fade?
UMass. I like UMass. I really do like UMass, but it's more of a number thing. Frank Martin plays all these teams close. Every single game, it seems like he plays absolutely close. They have no business playing close. They have a great front court. Guys coming in from South Carolina. The guys they have returning the backcourt are really nice. I'm not saying that UMass is going to be bad. I just think in a number standpoint, the way he plays these games close, if it's a close number against a good team, or if it's a big number, if they're a big favorite, take the dog. Take the dog.
Okay. They can play teams close.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, my favorite for this team for this conference is LaSalle. They lose their top two scorers, and they only won 5 conference games last season. They add the Drame brothers from St. Peter's, who are defensive whizzes, but this conference has some talent, and they could score the basketball, so I don't really think that's what you're looking for in this conference. So I'm going to go with LaSalle as a team to fade all year long. And we will move on to the American Athletic. We're going to touch on 3 teams in the American Athletic. 3 teams who I really think are going to be far and above better than every other team in this conference. We're going to start with Houston, the number 1 team in the country as we're recording this, and I think I think it's warranted. Like, I'm not it's whatever. They're number 1, whatever. I think they have the best 3 guards in the country, at least the best 3-guard trio. I think the Shed, Sasser, and I don't even want to. It gets me going how good I think those three guards can be, and they got the freshmen down low. And I'm a big guy. I always fade Houston in the tournament. Like one of my biggest bets of the year of my life was Baylor in the Final Four 2 years ago. And I'm like, Houston is just not that team. But I think they're different this year. And I feel like that's a lot for me to say because I've been fading them a lot over the past few seasons. So how do you think Houston will make it out? In the AAC, probably you think they're going to win, but further than that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really watch much American basketball, but they smoked every team in the conference last year. And then I got to see them in the NCAA tournament. I was high on UAB. I love Jelly Walker. So I thought they were going to go in there. I thought they were honestly going to win that game. It was going to be a 12-5 upset. Houston just absolutely smoked them. And then in the next game, they smoked Illinois. Not smoked, but they beat them pretty handily. I mean, Kelvin Sampson's done a great job over there. He's probably a top 10 coach in the country. They have a lot of the guys returning. They bring in guys. It's been really impressive what they did. Even this Kent State game, Kent State played them really tough on Saturday. Kent State has a great team all around, and they were able to squeeze it out there at the end. They went into Houston. They led pretty much that whole game. They smoked a really good Oral Roberts team, and they kept Max Abmas quiet. I've been really impressed with Houston. I think they're Elite Eight team at least. I think they're Elite Eight team at least. Really impressed. I love what they're doing over there.
And just like their defense is just absurd. They swarm like crazy. And then you add in Shed, Sasser, and Mark. They all have ability to score. Add in a top 10 recruit in Walker. Because the big man has kind of been like the issue, I guess, with Houston. They haven't really had that guy. They've had okay players, but they haven't really had that X factor guy. Walker could be that guy, and Reggie Chaney's been there. He's a fifth-year guy. So they have national championship hosts in Houston. Not sure if that's what they'll do, but I think I agree with you. Elite Eight at the minimum. Yeah. Memphis we'll talk about because they are a team that creates a lot of buzz. 4 transfers come in who have been very good over the past of their career. Kendrick Davis from SMU has looked pretty good, and Memphis is a team that kind of has been weird and like they kind of have these defensive games, but Kendrick Davis has been a spark plug that made him look a little bit better. McCadden from Georgia Southern, Kennedy from UTEP, and Franklin from UIC. They returned DeAndre Williams. I think they have a decent ceiling. I don't know how competitive they'll be with the Houstons of the world, but I know you don't like them. I think I'm a little bit higher on Memphis than you are. So what's your take?
I think that they're still a good team, but they aren't the typical Memphis team where they have all these 5 stars who come in.
Right.
But Penny Hardaway's done a great job so far. They went in a Vandy on the opening night and absolutely smoked them. They came back against SLU and made that a game the next game. They dominated VCU, and they looked really good against Nebraska and Stanford this weekend. So Kendrick Davis, like you mentioned, he's been in the American before. He knows how to guard. He knows how to play guard in that league. He puts up a ton of points. I think he's going to do a great job. I don't know if they're going to be second in the league. I really like Tulane. We'll probably be talking about Tulane soon.
Yeah.
But I think that they're a pretty good team. I think Penny Hardaway, he had his troubles before. They were turnover ridden in the first couple months last season.
That was insane.
It was insane. They were so terrible. They turned the ball over. But then February hit and they got really good. So I think he's developing himself as a good coach. He's struggled at the beginning and now he's starting to really find a groove.
Okay, we will move on to Tulane. When you look at this Tulane roster, Jalen Cook, Jalen Forbes, and Kevin Cross, that is a solid 1-2-5 punch. Like they have that core is awesome, and their other glue guys are legit too. Jalen Cook's been out recently. I don't think he played yesterday at all because he's dealing with a hamstring thing. But when he's back, he's a guy who could score at will, close to 20 points a game, and they are a super fun team, and they should be in the top 3 of this American Athletics. So what do you like about Tulane?
Yeah, all those guys, like you mentioned, I love them. And Ron Hunter's a great coach. He's completely turned around that program there. He's done it at a lot of places, IUPUI, Georgia State. Yeah, I mean, you don't usually look at Tulane and say, yeah, they're going to flirt for an NCAA tournament bid, but they're going to do it this year. They kind of had a tough weekend tough week in the Cayman Islands last week. They lost to Nevada, like I mentioned earlier, really surprising a lot of people. Lost to Western Kentucky, but they did beat URI. I just don't know if they're going to have the resume to make an NCAA tournament. So it's going to be tough for them to beat Houston. It's really interesting. I mean, I love their team. I love Cook, Forbes, Cross, but the Americans at a spot right now where it's going to be tough to get more than just Houston in the NCAA tournament.
All right, so who's your winner? Is it Houston?
Yeah.
Look, I put Memphis down when I did this preseason, but I'm changing to Houston. I'm changing. I'm very impressed by them. And like the past few years, in the first few weeks, you see a team that's like a clear juggernaut, a clear team. And last year, like Gonzaga, even though they didn't pan out, but you knew like they're better than everyone else. You can clearly tell. There's not really that team besides Houston. Houston and Purdue look really good to start the season. Texas too. So I'm gonna go with Houston. I just think those guards plus the new big man is gonna be awesome. And the team I'm gonna be fading is SMU. They lose 4 double-digit scorers from last season. They've returned 0, and they have a new coach. Not much depth. I think they're gonna be a mess this year. So who's your team to fade?
In USF, they're just terrible. I have no idea
they're
what's happening.
They're horrible too.
They're horrible. I don't know how they have 2 wins. I don't even know who they beat, but they play UMass tonight. UMass was. I'm not going to say it, but they're up 15 right now. They're up 15 right now. Runs 1.5. They beat St. Francis Brooklyn. Whoop-de-doo, and they beat St. Joe's, who we did the A10. St. Joe's is a complete mess. Maybe St. Joe's might be the team to ultimately fade in the A10. I don't know how the coach is still there. Circling back. Yeah, I don't know how Billy Lang's still there. It's been really tough for them, but USF is terrible. Their best players, Keyshawn Bryant, coming over from South Carolina. They're not good. I don't know why Brian Gregory's still there. They signed all their coaches of all their sports to an extension last year after not even getting double-digit wins. So I don't know what USF's trying to do over there. I have absolutely no clue. It's a shit show. There's a couple. Tulsa's really bad too, but USF's just not good.
The top 3 in this conference should be clearly better than the rest of the conference. So I agree with you on that.
I like Cincy too.
Wes Miller. I like Cincy too. All right, moving on to the Mountain West Conference. Few teams there's one team I really love, and I'll get to them. So we'll start with Colorado State. They lose their guys who's been David Roddy's been one of their best players. Is he playing in the NBA now? I'm not an NBA guy at all.
I want to say I'm not an NBA guy either, but I want to say he got drafted by the Grizzlies, and my roommates are big Wizards fans, and we've watched them play against the Wizards. So David Roddy is playing in the NBA right now. I know he's getting minutes with the Grizzlies.
Okay, so they return Isaiah Stevens and Josiah Strong. They get Division II stud Patrick Cartier. When Isaiah Stevens has been playing, he's been hurt early in the season, but he's played a little bit. They've looked really good, and they have one of the better coaches in the country, Nico Medved, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah. They look awesome. So some games they look awesome when Isaiah Stevens is there is what I'm getting at. They're a team that's always going to be a tough place to play. So I think Colorado State is going to be one of the better teams in this conference as well.
Yeah, people love College of Charleston, and I saw Colorado State play College of Charleston. I mean, Colorado State when they spoke South Carolina the night before South Carolina.
I bet South Carolina that game for what it's
worth. Me too. And I don't know if I've had a worse bet ever because they've been absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
And they caused so many fits. Isaiah Stevens really hasn't played all that much, and they're still doing a really good job.
Yeah.
Nico Medved, like you mentioned, great coach. I don't know if they'll be up there towards the top of the Mountain West. They struggled at the beginning of the season against Gardner-Webb, Southeast Louisiana. But I think they're going to be better than I put them out to be. I just don't know if they're going to be top of the league. And like you mentioned, David Roddy's gone. Tanji's done a great job over there early in the season. Isaiah Rivera's done a great job. Cartier coming over from D2 level. Really good. Jackson over there. Moores. I like Nico Medved. He can coach with anyone in the country. He'll keep them competitive. I just don't think they're an NCAA tournament team again.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. New Mexico Lobos. One of my favorite teams in the country. Jalen House and Jamal Moshburn, they're electric. They're one. I would put them in the top 5 to 10 backcourt duos in the country. They've looked awesome to start the season. I know they had that little break in the season with the New Mexico State thing. Sad to see those games getting canceled because those were going to be electric. They add two legit transfers in Maurice Judize and in Josiah Alec from UMKC. And that's a solid 1 to 5 guys that have had success in their careers, scoring double digits, and they have a great coach. So I think New Mexico has very high expectations, and they should, for the conference who really has 1 to 2 elite level teams who should be the favorites. And I guess one of those teams could be Wyoming, and they don't have Graham Ike. So San Diego State maybe is the other team. Is the other team. So UNM has high hopes this season, and I think they could compete for that top spot.
Yeah, I love Mashburn. I love House. I think that's the best backcourt in the nation. And they've been struggling on the front court. Then they bring in Udeze from Wichita State. He had a double-double, I want to say, against Northern Colorado on Sunday. And Josiah Alec from UMKC. So they've got a really good team over there. It's going to be interesting. They play St. Mary's tomorrow, who I think is right up there with San Diego State as the best major in the country. Looking through all this stuff, I'm pulling up their schedule. They're a 10-point dog tomorrow, which is really interesting because St. Mary's has been playing. They've been blowing teams out. Yeah.
I watched it in money line for St. Mary's, and that hit for me in overtime. I might go right back to that.
I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. St. Mary's has been blowing out teams at home, but like you mentioned that.
Oh, yeah, it is at home.
I mean, I just don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see how that offense adapts to St. Mary's defense tomorrow. St. Mary's has been playing out of this world. I was shocked that they lost that Washington game. But I love New Mexico. I think that they're one of the top mid-major teams in the nation. When they're really good, the Pitt's rocking, and that's one of the toughest places to play in the country. They really played well there in February last season. I love New Mexico. I think that they could be really good this year and up there towards the top of the Mountain West.
Agree. All right, we'll talk about San Diego State. And Matt Bradley, probably one of the smartest guys in the country, leaving that disgusting California program to head to SDSU. But he has looked a little rough this season. Not worried. He is a prolific scorer, and he can do it at all three levels. Like, he could shoot, he could play inside. He looks like a running back, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Add in Darren Trammell. I don't even have to talk about Darren Trammell. If you know mid-major basketball, you know Darren Trammell. Dude can score from all over the just light up the court. And those two guys will be elite. There's been other question marks around San Diego State scoring the basketball for the past few seasons, but they look a lot better early to start the season. So I think they're going to be elite this year, and they've looked so good. So how do you think they'll pan out?
Yeah, I think they're going to be elite. I think coming into the season, they were second in defensive efficiency on KenPom. They've always been great defensively, and they've been putting up crap ton of points. They haven't been able to do that in the past. Right. And they're doing it now, so it's awesome to see. You mentioned Darren Trammell coming over from Seattle. He's an elite guard. Michael Parrish comes over from Oakland. Both those guys were all defensive league players in their old league, and they're coming in and they're just solidifying that defense.
I didn't even realize Trammell. Wow, yeah, you're right. I forgot.
I think they're amazing. They play UC Irvine tonight. That's going to be another battle. They got blown out by Arizona, but it's Arizona. And like I mentioned earlier, I think they're the best team in the country. They smoked Ohio State, smoked Stanford. They beat BYU. I think if they play their cards right, now they have a really tough schedule to play St. Mary's, and they got to go through the gauntlet of traveling to all these Mountain West teams. But if they end up maybe coming out of Mountain West play with like 2 losses, it could be a 3-4 seed in the NCAA tournament. It's showing that they have 2 losses. They're a mid-major program, and they're still ranked. How good people think they are. They're going to be really
that's very true. I agree with you. All right, we'll move on to UNLV. And what I have to say about UNLV is that Kevin Kruger, I don't know how he's like a great recruiter. They're retrying what they did last year. We're going to go and grab a bunch of studs. It didn't really pan out until late last year, and we're just going to try it again. And it's looked good so far. They had a few big wins to start the season, and they have a fun roster. Like they get EJ Harkless from Oklahoma. We know that they have Jordan McCabe, who is a great game manager at point guard, played at W a few years ago, was a great high school player. And then they get a few other guys from Colorado, West Virginia, Ole Miss, Duquesne, just guys that have played at big levels and are coming into this program. Now, can Kevin Kruger put it all together? He can get him in, and it kind of came to fruition last year late in the season, but we'll see how that pans out. But it's looking good to start. So how do you think UNLV will pan out?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to mention their fans are stuck in the 90s. They think they're still a high major program. Take the respect that I'm giving you. I mean, they've had a great start to the season. They beat Dayton, who was never really close. That was the last leg of a parlay that I had that really pissed me off. But then they just doubled up on it and they went over to Southern California this weekend and beat a very good Southern Illinois team. They beat Minnesota by 9. I've been really impressed. I was high on them at the beginning of the season, kind of fell off in the first week, and now they're just playing super well. And this non-conference schedule is no joke. They've done it against some good teams. Then they also got to go to San Diego. They play Hawaii. They play Washington State and Vegas.
That's a legit schedule.
Southern Miss. Yeah, it just doesn't end. Doesn't end for them. And they have all these transfers coming in. They've done really well so far. Jackie Johnson from Duquesne, Elijah Harkless from Colorado, Luis Rodriguez from Ole Miss, I want to say. Elijah Park. Did I already mention Elijah Parquet from Colorado? Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
Isaiah Cottrell, Jordan McCabe, Sean Knoll. They're just so deep. They have so many guys that they can just rotate through there. I've been really impressed with UNLV so far. I wasn't really expecting this coming in the season, but they're playing themselves, if they can continue winning, into at-large consideration.
Well, it was funny what Bryce Hamilton did a few times last season. He would have games where he legit couldn't miss shots. He would just pull up from damn near half court and just make everything. And I would be so annoyed because they weren't really a great team, and then I'd bet against them. And I'd bet against Bryce Hamilton on his 40-point night. Of course, why wouldn't I? So that's UNLV. I think they could be solid. And we'll talk about Wyoming. Their two best players, Maldo and EK, return. EK is out for I don't know how long, but a decent amount of time, and they've looked a bit rough without him. Wyoming was good last year. I think they cracked the top 25 at some point. They made the tournament. They lost in the first 4, I believe. I forget who was first, but Indiana. That was a fun game. And a majority of the roster returns, but they haven't looked like they I kind of get what the nation's expecting. What's your take on Wyo?
Yeah, it pisses me off. Graham Ike and Hunter Maldonado are gone. I was told at the beginning of the season, Hunter Maldonado, it was more a precautionary thing, and he'd probably come back soon. But people are already falling off the train with him. I think that they're a great team, and Ike and Maldonado together are one of the best duos in college basketball. And then they went and they recruited all these LA Pac-12 transfers and bringing them in together. They're going to be really good. I think if everything goes right and they win and people get healthy, they could be back in that at-large talk. I love Wyoming. I think Wyoming is a great program. They really surprised a lot of people last year. They've built it up. They can it's a fight always with them. Great coaching staff. I love Wyoming, and I'm going to keep being high on them until they get healthy. And if they play this way when they're healthy, they prove me wrong. It's whatever. But I think that Wyoming's still a top 15 mid-major team in the country. They've just had a really tough go of it. They lost a Southeast Louisiana game. They had a fairly tough time.
That's a tough loss. That's a
very tough loss. They had a tough time in the Paradise Jam, losing to Drake's probably one of the best mid-major teams in the country, and then they lost to BC. Fell flat there at the end. But, they play Santa Clara tomorrow. That's going to be interesting.
They got to win that game because
they got to. Yeah, they got to win it. And Grand Canyon, they got that Dayton game, St. Mary's. So if they can win a couple of these games, they can definitely get some stuff on their resume to start building it back up. But it pisses me off that people are jumping off the Wyoming train just because they're losing games without their top players. But when they get healthy, I think that they're going to be good. Hopefully, Graham Ike is back for that Dayton game. I can see him against Malachi Smith and Deron Holmes over there in Chicago.
Okay, so the Mountain West is going to be fun this season for sure. Who is your winner of the Mountain West?
I'm going with Wyoming. I'm going to stick with it. I think if they get healthy, they could be the best team, and they'll be battling out with San Diego State. I think both of them could easily have maybe 2 to 4 losses in the league, and just those games against each other are going to be humongous. There's so many teams this league. We didn't even mention Utah State. I think Utah State is such an easy non-conference schedule, but I love Ryan Odom. Ryan Odom's done so much for me throughout the years, especially when he was at UMBC. I think that they have a great team. They could sneak in there. If Nevada continues to play the way that they're playing right now, they can sneak in there. Boise State won the regular season and conference tournament title last year. They've had a kind of tough start.
It's a good conference.
It's such a fun conference. Every night they play every night at 11 o'clock on CBS Sports or Fox Sports 1. So it's super accessible and it's super fun to watch. If you're getting into this stuff, highly recommend watching Mountain West basketball.
So my winner of this conference, when I looked at the odds, this was a play based on the odds. I was like, there is no way New Mexico should be 30-1 to win this conference, and I bet that because this team is electric, and no one, if they win this conference, no one would be that surprised looking at the roster, looking at the coach. Be like, okay, like yeah, I see it. So 30-1, a bit of a long shot. They're my pick to win this conference, and I bet it preseason. The team that I'm going to be fading, and I might sound dumb right now, but I wrote this is from preseason. The team that I wrote to be fading is Nevada. I'm actually very impressed how they look this season because they were pretty bad last year, but they had a bunch of injuries all year. The transfers are looking good, but losing Washington and Cambridge, their two best players, and Sherfield, that felt like it was a lot to me. But the transfers came in and kind of righting the ship, playing a little bit different style of basketball. They look good to start the season. But I'm just going to stick with my guns and fade them going forward. Maybe it'll burn me. Can't win them all. So we're going to go with Nevada. Who are you fading?
Yeah, I thought Nevada was going to be horrible this year. Super impressed by them. Yeah. I don't know if they're going to be that great. But I'd probably be fading Fresno State. They lose Orlando Robinson.
They lose the big guy.
Yeah, he was a key piece of that team last year. I've never been really too impressed with anything they're doing over there. And it's shown this year. They've had a tough start to the schedule. They've started 1-5. Yeah, Fresno State. I'm not too high on anything they're doing over there. They lost some key pieces. Yeah, the Bulldogs.
All right, we will move on to the WCC. Maryland is up by 20 for what it's worth. Okay, WCC. We're going to start with who else but Gonzaga. Weird start to the season, just missing wide open threes, not finishing at the rim. That will turn. What Purdue did to them, just eliminating the transition, was so impressive on Purdue's level, but a bit concerning on Gonzaga's level because they're a team that's dictated the tempo of every game. Mark Few is a great coach. So what are we going to make of Gonzaga? They obviously have one of the best players in the country in Drew Timme. Razir Bolton's back, Julian Straw there, and they add Malachi Smith from Chattanooga. I love Malachi Smith. I don't know how well he will perform at this level, but Malachi Smith is one of my favorite players of the last few seasons at Chattanooga. Nolan Hickman has kind of been bad to start the season, and they've just been not the Gonzaga we're used to seeing. So what's your take on them? What's going on with them?
Yeah, I mean, they just have such a gauntlet of schedule. Mark Few's going to find his way. They're super deep. They have Malachi Smith coming off the bench. I really like a lot of that roster. I think they'll hit their bumps here in the non-conference. It's been shown. They lost the Purdue game, right? They lost to Purdue. They lost to Texas. They got smoked in both those games. But those are two really good teams, two of the top teams in the country. They weren't really expecting that. They'll find their stride. I mean, honestly, I don't know. I love St. Mary's. I think St. Mary's could beat them a game. They could even win the WCC tournament. I think it might be a different year over here in the WCC. It's just such a deep league that Gonzaga's not going to – people think Gonzaga walks into like a Pepperdine. It's going to be an easy night. Pepperdine's played them close every single year in Malibu. Yeah. Quit it with that WCC trash. They're not that bad, people.
No, they're not.
No.
San Francisco, one of my favorite teams in the country.
Yeah, they made that large bid last year.
Yeah, and you love San Diego, which I can't wait to hear your take on them. So the Zags, yeah, they're going to be the Zags. They're going to be a top 10 team in the country. Just I wouldn't freak out too much yet, but I don't think they are the juggernaut that we're used to the last few seasons. All right, we'll move on to Pepperdine, a team that has a decent roster. They returned 3 double-digit scorers and a majority of their production from last year. They had a transfer from USC who didn't log that many minutes last year, but it's a big conference transfer. I think they'll only go up from being 7-25 last season. The roster looks good. They have a few NBA guys on the roster. I think it's going to be a decent season for Pepperdine standards. What's your take on that?
Yeah, you look at that record last year, and you're not going to be too impressed. But I love Pepperdine. Lorenzo Romar is a great coach. He's done at Washington. He's developed NBA guys, obviously, Colby Ross, Kessler Edwards at Pepperdine. And I think the next one's going to be Houston Millett. I love Houston Millett. He originally committed to Penn State. I want to say he's like a 4-star guy. His dad's the AD at UC Riverside. He goes over there to Pepperdine. He's one of the best freshmen in the country. People aren't talking about him. Yeah. They also have Mike Mitchell over there. John Zedek's been there forever. I think Pepperdine's going to be, if they can keep Houston Millette and Mitchell around for a couple of years, I think come their senior year, 2 years from now, they could be competing for an at-large bid. I love what they have over there. Pepperdine's a super fun to watch.
I agree. Yeah. And I think Pepperdine's got to be one of the easiest schools to recruit to.
Look at the campus. That place is
come on.
They filmed Zoe 101 or whatever.
Right, literally, yes.
Yeah.
Like, if they get the pieces, they just show a little, like, we can compete. I'm not saying I don't know what's going to happen 15 years from now, but maybe Pepperdine's is the new Gonzaga, like, in a few years. Like, because, Gonzaga 20, 30 years ago, nothing. Yeah. Like, and now, like, look you never know. And I think Pepperdine has the infrastructure, has the California, like Malibu, like, they have talent over there. They can do it. And I think this year could be a jumping stone to get to that point down the road, because we just talked about the roster. I think they will take step forwards. We'll move on to Portland. Shante, you're doing it again, and you keep doing it. The roster is awesome. They were literally Eastern Washington's roster last year, and now they got a few more pieces, and they've been so competitive with these big schools. Portland, they look awesome. What's your take on Portland?
Yeah, everyone's hopping on the Shante train. I've been on it for a long time.
Yeah.
He's a great dude. He's a great coach. He did it at Eastern Washington. Yep. Now he's at Portland. I'm not going to say I called it, but I called it last year in the preseason. They were picked 10th. I said there's no chance in hell they were going to finish 10th. They finished like 4th, 5th, 6th, something in that range. And they had
won 20 games this year. They could win 20 games.
They could win 20 games. And he's done it. He recruits all these international guys as they come in. He's had some guys that came over from even Eastern Washington, Tyler Robertson. So one of those guys, I want to say, 16.6 points per game. He had a super impressive weekend. They beat Villanova. They were battling North Carolina. They had a great comeback there at the end against Michigan State. But like you mentioned, I think they can win 20 games. Shante's a great coach. Moses Wood, Mike Meadows, Applewhite, even Joey St. Pierre there at the bottom. The thing was they didn't really have that size last year. He's a guy. He comes over from Milwaukee. They didn't really have that size last year. And Shante knew it. He went out and he got the big men, and he knows he needs – after one season of coaching in the WCC, he said, I need size to win in this league, and that's exactly what he did. He went out there and got it. I think they're just a program on the rise, and they're going to finish in the top 4 or 5. People were calling me crazy for saying that they could flirt for an at-large bid in the preseason. Look at them now.
Let's go. Let's go. All right, now this is your time to shine. San Diego Toreros, new regime under Steve Lavin. They got transfers from all over the country, and they've looked awesome to start the season. Let's hear your San Diego case, because you've talked about it earlier, so I'm waiting to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't crazy high on San Diego heading in the season just because the WCC is so deep. I mean, this kind of shows, how great this league is, that San Diego was picked like 7th or 8th in the league, and they have all these guys coming in. Like I've mentioned, I'm a Duquesne guy. Eric Williams was at Duquesne. He was great there. He was great at Oregon. And now he's going over there. I want to say, what was it? The Utah State game. He dropped like 42 points, and they lost. But, I mean, they have all these transfers. And if they click on the right night, they're going to be great. I mean, they've already got one FGCU. NGIT has a couple, like 2 or 3, 4, 5-star guys on their teams. They beat a really good Longwood team last night. Jace Townsend, Jaden Dallaire was great at Stanford.
Like Stanford's best player, probably. So,
yeah, I mean, I think San Diego, they might pick off one of those top teams in the WCC, St. Mary's, BYU, who's kind of struggled. Gonzaga better not go into Jenny Craig Pavilion and think that they're going to stomp over them. It's not your same San Diego team. That's a really nice place to recruit as well. Who doesn't want to go to San Diego? I think that they're going to be much better than they're put out to be. They've impressed me over these last couple of weeks. I wasn't too high on them, but I think that maybe like 5-6 in the league. I like them.
This might be the best year for San Diego basketball as a whole.
Yeah.
San Diego State, San Diego. I'm not that high on UC San Diego, but Bryce Pope has that electric game in him, like 3 times this season. Mm-hmm. So we're gonna do San Francisco, and then we'll talk about St. Mary's. I didn't even put him down, but we'll talk about St. Mary's. San Francisco, what a year under Todd Golden! Just so impressive. Sad to see him go, but they still have the roster there. They have the infrastructure there. Ty Roberts from
Is it
Missouri
Bradley?
State? Yeah. Oh, Bradley. Yes. Ty Roberts from Bradley. They have Tony Rochak from, I don't know why I'm blanking, from UC San Diego, one of my favorite players in the country. I love him, but he hasn't really been used so far this season. And then they have the guys that they had from last year. I think this team is only going to get better. They lost in the first round last year. Who did they play in the tournament last year? That it was
Murray
the worst
State.
matchup ever. Murray State.
So annoying.
Why did they Yeah, so annoying. That was a great game, though. So I'm super hyped for the San Francisco team. Obviously, they have a new coach, but what they have going, and then Khalil Shabazz, absolute stud at point guard. I think they're going to be awesome. So what's your thoughts on the San Francisco team?
Yeah, my mistake. Ty Roberts, Washington State. Chris Garlifson, love him. A couple years ago, he was at Hawaii, and Oranganot had some health issues, and he stepped in. He did a great job over there at Hawaii, and he's been bouncing around the country. He's had some of the most difficult places to coach as an assistant. He was at Citadel. He was at Hartford. Hawaii can even be difficult to coach in because you're on an island. And he's done a great job at all these stops, and he's finally got his stop to be a head coach. San Francisco got elevated. His dad was the head coach at UMass in the 80s, and he's done a really good job so far. I mean, Khalil Shabazz is back. You mentioned Ty Roberts. That's a great backcourt. Zane Meeks, when he's healthy. I love him. I remember
when brothers with John Meeks from Charleston.
I'm not sure. I know Zane Meeks is from Kansas City. I'm not sure about.
You know what I'm talking about, right? John Meeks.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when he's healthy,
they look too different. Yeah, they look too different.
They're not related. I mean, like, he was Tony Rochak. I don't even know if he's only averaging 3 points per game.
Yeah, he's not getting used like he was last year, and he's a guy that can bring the ball up. He's a guy that can score at the basket. Like, he's like a good player who, if he gets going in this offense, they could be a legit. They can contend for the top. I don't think they're going to win, but they can run with these top St. Mary's, with these top Gonzaga teams. I really think they could, and they have. I think there's an awesome roster, and Shabazz came from he's a guy that could score 25, 30 points a game on any given night. So I think the San Francisco roster is legit. And let's talk about St. Mary's a little bit. So you think they can win this conference, win the regular season, and take the throne from Gonzaga? What do you like about St. Mary's?
Yeah, just elite defense. Their guards are insane. I mean, Aiden Mahaney comes in. He's one of the more underrated guards in the country. I mean, he's from Australia. So, Randy Bennett's been able to do it. He's got Matthew Dellavedova, Patty Mills that come in, and they've just been studs. And he's been a stud so far over there at St. Mary's, 13.1 points per game. Johnson returns. Logan Johnson's been there forever. Great guard. Mauro Shunas, he's not really putting up the production that people thought he was going to be, but he's done a great job. And they got Saxon down low, who's averaging 15 points and 9 rebounds per game. But, that defense is just insane. They've had a gauntlet of a schedule to open the season. Oral Roberts, they won by 8. They smoked Vermont. They smoked North Texas. Vermont is bad, which I was not expecting.
Yeah.
I think that they'll bounce back come conference play. I mean, I think Bryant maybe is the favorite in the league. UMass Lowell's kind of snuck in there, but they smoked North Texas. North Texas, they were not healthy, but they still smoked them. Yeah. Southern's had a good start to the season. Smoked them. Smoked Hofstra. Beat Vandy by 10, and then they lost to Washington in overtime. But I think that they got a great team. That defense, that style that Randy Bennett runs is tricky. They've always been a tough out in the WCC. I think this is their year. This might be their year.
Listen, and Zags are down from what their standards have been. So I think I agree with you there. I'm still going to go with the Zags as my winner. I am a little bit worried about that St. Mary's front court just defending Timmy in that setting. But they have the infrastructure. They have the defense at a macro level to possibly do that one time a year. So maybe they can get it done. So is your pick going to be St. Mary's?
No, I still think Zags will win the regular season title.
All right, so we'll go with Zags.
Yeah, there might be
consensus. Don't lay the minus 700 if you're listening. Just don't do that.
Don't do that. That's too much.
Yeah. All right. The team I'm going to be fading is Loyola Marymount. They were at 9th place last season. They lose their do-it-all guy, Eli Curry, and Joe Quintana, which is about, I think, 30 points per game between the two. They return 0 double-digit scorers, and They have a decent front court, but besides that, it's not a team that I see competing in this conference with how deep the conference has gotten, and they haven't looked really great so far. They had one good win recently. I forget who it was versus, but it kind of like turned my head a little bit. But I think as the season pans out, I think Loyola Marymount will be at the bottom of this WCC. Are you looking at their schedule?
Yeah, they beat Wake.
Yeah, okay.
Interesting.
Kind of turned my head, but like Wake is like not great either, but kind of surprising. So who's your fade?
Yeah, probably Loyola. I mean, I guess it wasn't. Pacific last night lost to Cal Poly. They kind of blew it there. But you know,
Pacific
like
should be better than
they should be better. That's the thing. They've I don't know if Leonard Perry is back. He wasn't coaching at the beginning of the season, but ever since he's been back, they've kind of struggled. So
yeah.
I mean, the lines are obviously going to be big against the Tigers. So I don't know if they're exactly a fade. I mean, it's really tough to fade any team this league. Loyola Marymount probably would be the choice. You know, BYU is not even that great this year, but they have a lot of pieces that they could.
Yeah, they have a few transfers.
Yeah, they got Rudy Williams and the kid from some African country. I can't think of his name. Troy Roy. Yeah, I knew.
Yes.
I'm going to say that. But, yeah, I think it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Loyola.
All right, Loyola. We'll move on to the America East. We got 3 teams to talk about here. The 3 teams, we kind of already mentioned them a little bit. UVM, UMass Lowell, and Bryant. UVM won this conference, and they've kind of owned this conference the last few years. They lose their Lord and Savior in Ryan Davis, who has just been the guy for Vermont the past few years, and Ben Shungu. That's 35 points per game between the two. They get Dylan Penn from Bellarmine, who was able to score, but he's more of he doesn't scream Vermont basketball to me. He's more of like a drive and dish and finish at the rim type guy. Then Vermont is just shoot from all over the place, but he can do it a little bit. So they lose a lot of key pieces, and I don't see them having that scoring ability that they've had the past few years. They're a team that you can blindly bet their team total over every single game and finish profitable. I don't think that's the team this year. I think they're going to take a little bit of step back, and they were my fade. I already said they're my fade for the conference, and they've been horrible so far to start the season. I've already made a decent amount of money fading them. So Vermont is not. I don't think they're going to be that great this year, but I wanted to mention them because they've just been the class of the AAC recently.
Yeah, I mean, John Becker's class act. He's one of the nicest guys in the country, but it's been tough. You know, they've been getting smoked. They got smoked by St. Mary's. They lost to Fullerton in double overtime. They got smoked by Ona, Yale, Long Beach State just a couple nights ago. It's been tough. Dylan Penn's great. Comes over from Bellarmine. Should be a really good guard, but, I mean, who knows? Finn Sullivan's their number 3 guy. He's had some big games. Aaron Deloney. He's there, but they don't have any size. Nick Fiorello is their top guy coming over from San Diego a couple of years ago. And that's just, I mean, Vermont's really implemented that size. It's going to be tough because, you know, these teams are just running them up. They're not putting up offense. And, of course, we're going to talk about Bryant, but Bryant just runs like crazy. They score a crap ton of points. And that's going to be tough for Vermont to go up against because they really haven't been able to score. Yeah,
so I think Vermont will definitely take a step back. Before we get into the next 2 teams, quick update for the night. South Carolina State is about to beat East Carolina. Yeah, Maryland is up by 30 now, about 30, 26 against Louisville. And Duquesne is looking good.
Yeah, they're looking good.
All right, so let's talk about UMass Lowell. I like them a lot this season. They finished 9th last year, but they returned 3 double-digit scorers and their best player in Connor Weathers from returns from the last the 2020-2021 season. They're going to be very competitive and in a conference that's not really great. So they're running with Vermont and Bryant. There's not really another team that I think is going to compete with them. And UMass Lowell is on the team. You're like, oh, they're going to turn any heads. But in the America East, I think they will be in the top 3, can possibly finish second to Bryant. I think that Bryant's a clear favorite. So you like Lowell too? Because heard you mention him before.
Yeah, I really have been impressed by Lowell. You know, Steve Peichel, he used to be in the America East. He's at Rutgers now, and he spoke really highly of Lowell. He said he's seen Pat Duquette coach a lot of teams. He said this is probably the best team he's coached so far, and it's shown. They've looked really good. Their offense is really electric. I didn't think that they were going to be Bryant's top contender heading into the season, but they are. And, you know, Pat Duquette's been able to do it in a long time. His brother Dan used to be the GM of the Orioles, And I don't know how this correlates, but he's gotten a lot of guys from the DMV to come to his team, and it's been awesome. Like, yeah, when they come to UMBC, there's a lot of UMass Lowell people there. It's kind of become a little rivalry. I've loved to see it. Koulibaly, 15.7 points per game, damn near 10 rebounds. He's done insane. I want to say he was at Bonaventure before this. For some reason, his stats before aren't popping up, but he's just like he's gone crazy. Everett Hammond, the DMV guy, 11 points per game. Ayinde Hakeem, another DMV guy, 9.9 points per game. Max Brooks in that front court, 9.9. Alan Blunt, another DMV guy, 8.7. Even Connor Withers is down there, 3.9 points per game. Lowell's really deep. I was not expecting this out of them. I've been really impressed. They've been smoking teams. They smoked Columbia. Columbia's had its struggles.
What they did last night was crazy.
Yeah, I was starting like 0 for 17 from the field, only put up 39 points. I know we'll probably talk about the Ivy later. Probably won't talk about Columbia, so I'll mention them now. I thought they were going to be much better. Well, they still got a lot of time to grow. There are a lot of really young pieces on that team. One of the best recruiting classes of all the mid-majors in the Northeast. But, Lowell's really impressed me. I think that they're going to be much better than people put them out to be. They're definitely going to be top 4 in the league.
Okay, we will move on to Bryant. They finished first in the NEC. Now they move over to the America East, who I guess is an upgrade, but maybe not this season. I don't. AAC is kind of down. They have an awesome damn roster. Charles Pride was one of the most underrated players, I would say, in my opinion, because of Peter Kiss's existence. He kind of was the face of Bryant, but Charles Pride was right there with him, almost 20 points a game. Gross Bullock from LaSalle, Earl Timberlake from Memphis, Antoine Walker from Rhode Island, and Miles Latimer from Bucknell. That is a roster. Didn't even mention Doug Eddard, a guy that even the smallest basketball fan knows from just being at St. Peter's and being that white kid who with the mustache. So everyone recognizes that kid. I don't really think he's that good, but he's serving his role. Jersey kid though, so always got to shout him out. I think this roster is amazing, and it's so much more talented than any other team in this conference. I'm just waiting to get odds on how am I on the CUSA right now? I'm waiting to get. Yeah, I don't know how to. I'm waiting to get odds on the America East because I haven't seen them yet, but I just want to put a lot on Bryant to win this regular season, and I really think Vermont is going to be their only team to slow them down, at least going forward the next few seasons, but not this year. I think Bryant runs away with it this year.
Yeah, what Jared Gross has done there is amazing. So I mentioned it often. I had coffee with their old SID a couple of months ago, and no one showed up at their games. He was fabricating the attendance numbers, and now that place is rocking every night. No one wants to play him. People are giving him crap like last night for playing Framingham State or whatever.
Yeah, they play them every year. That's a New York school, I think.
Yeah, and they're a mid-major program. Of course, they're going to play some of these bye games against these D2, D3 schools. I don't know what the problem with that is, but they went down to Florida and they lost FAU. FAU is a really good team. They beat FIU, and
good team too.
Great team. They beat a really good Detroit Mercy team too down there, and then they beat Syracuse. So they're just really good. Sharif Gross-Bullock, you mentioned him. He had a huge game there against Syracuse, hit a couple big shots, averaging 16.1 points per game. Charles Pride kind of been over or underrated because just what Peter Kiss has done there. He's been the rock of the team for a long time. Earl Timberlake was a 5-star guy. Memphis, he's been great over there so far. Antoine Walker comes over from Rhode Island. Doug Edwards even averaging 10 points per game. He had a big game a couple games ago, and he got ejected for a little slap right there against Syracuse. Kayvon Kramer, Tal Brailsford comes over from Mount St. Joe and GW. They just have a loaded roster of all these transfers. They've meshed really well together, and I feel like it's going to start showing in the recruiting ranks too, because a couple years ago, Jared Grosso offered 60, 70, 80 kids in one day, 1 week, not one day, 1 week. And it was just absolutely insane. And it's that old adage, if you offer all these guys, at least one will say yes. And that's going to happen.
Is a strategy.
Exactly. And it's going to happen soon enough. And he's got enough of these guys that are starting to build something. If you can get Earl Timberlake to stay there, they're going to be a really good program for a couple years.
Sure. For sure. So I said UVM was my fade, but actually my real fade's Maine. They were 10th place last season. They lose their 2 leading scorers and they return literally nothing in production-wise last year. They're going to be a team that you're going to have to lay a lot against. They're not going to be good, but between them and UVM, UV has a team that you're going to get decent lines to bet against because they're going to be respected. Obviously, my winner is going to be Bryant, so I'm assuming you're with Bryant as well, but who are you going to be fading?
Yeah, I'm with Bryant right as of right now. I really like what Maine's building over there. Chris Markwood, he's a Mainer. He is from Portland. You don't get that often with Maine, so I hope he can build something. Maybe he can get – I don't know why I can't think of the kid's name. He's like top player in the class, and my roommates always give me crap about it. But he not this year, but next year, and he's getting like Duke, Michigan offers. Really? He's from Augusta, and he's like the top player in the class. It's insane. But I like what they're building over there. It pains me to say it. It's another team that I won't bet against because I just have such a strong allegiance with. But UMBC is just, I mean, they have all these non-D1 transfers coming in, and it's really rough what's going on over there. They got smoked by Princeton. They've been playing like Central Connecticut and Lafayette close. I mean, Jim Ferry is a pretty good coach. I just really don't like what's going on the court right now. Hopefully they pick it back up, but this is the least confident I've felt of UMBC since before the Ryan Odoms days. So since like the early 2010s. So it's tough.
All right, we will move on to the Atlantic Sun. A fun conference. They always have a few teams that make some noise. We'll start with Jacksonville. Not to be confused with Jacksonville State, which we will talk about. Jacksonville Dolphins in Florida. They were 3rd place last season. They return their leading scorer. Plus, they get 12 points per game. Dylan O'Hearn from NJIT, a guy who can light it up. They also get a few transfers. One transfer, Omar Payne, guy originally went to Florida, then went to Illinois, and he is now at Jacksonville. I believe he is from Florida, so he's coming back home. That's a lot of talent. So I think this Jacksonville team, who was good last year and is only going to get better, I think they're going to be legit.
Yeah, Jordan Mincy's done a great job over there. I believe there was the most wins in school history last year. I actually don't think that's right because they've made a Final Four before. Omar Gilmore or Artis Gilmore was there. But you mentioned Dylan O'Hearn. He had some really big games at NJIT. My guy put about 48 points in the game or something. He's done a great job over there so far. Kavion Nolan's back. Marsh is averaging around 13.5 points per game. Omar Payne. I really do like this Jacksonville team. I feel like Jacksonville, FGCU are going to be up there towards the top of the league. People were sleeping on FGCU. The metrics didn't like FGCU heading into the season, and they proved them wrong right away in the first game when they beat USC. They got Chase Johnson over there. I don't know if we're going to talk about them later, but they got Chase Johnson, who was at Stetson, and now he's at FGCU. So he's played in the league. He's a Florida kid. He's dominated the league. He's been an all-league member. That's going to be great for them. But I really do like this Jacksonville team. They just really haven't challenged themselves so far. They beat Campbell by 21. Their only other D1 game was against Duke. So you can't really tell that much. They play UAB tomorrow. I do like this Jacksonville team. I don't know if they're going to be as great as they were last year, but I think that they'll be up there towards the top.
All right, we'll move on to Jacksonville State, a team who lost their entire starting 5 from last season, but they return a few transfers. They get Sky Potter from Moorhead, Clarence Jackson from Wichita, Peyton Daniels from Vandy, Cam McDowell from Georgia. That is talent, and this is a team who is locked and loaded to rebuild again. And they won the conference last year, and they played in the first round of the. Did they make the NCAA tournament last year? I forget if they won the conference.
Bellarmine won the conference, and they were regular season champions.
Right. Okay, so Jack State, a team that I think is going to be contending again. I don't know if they're going to win it or come close, but they have a decent roster with a lot of talent. Anything on Jack State?
Yeah, I love Demarie King. He's our star guard, 52.4 points per game so far. You mentioned Skylar Potter coming over from Moorhead. Ray Harper's a great coach. He's done it at other places before. Had a really strong season at Jacksonville State last year, their first year in the ASUN, and I think that should just continue. They're a great program. We mentioned Jacksonville and Jacksonville State, 2 separate states. Jacksonville State's in Alabama. No, it's
Georgia, right?
Alabama. It's Alabama.
Really? I thought it was in Georgia. You're probably right. No, you're all right. You're all right. Sorry. Keep going.
And Jacksonville's in Florida, but I think that they're going to be up there towards the top again. They beat a good North Dakota State team. They battled a really good Northern Colorado team, and they beat Elon by 25. So I think they're going to be one of the top teams in the ASUN. And never count out Ray Harper. Ray Harper's a great coach.
Yeah. Okay. We'll move on to Kennesaw State. Team that started off hot last year, but they tailed quickly. Returned all 5 of their starters, and I just think based off that, they're going to take a leap in the standings. They finished last year 6th. So with that core coming back, I think they will take a jump forward. So, and that's besides that, nothing really else on Kennesaw.
Yeah, they keep getting better and better. A couple of years ago, I want to say they didn't even win a game. They won like
horrendous.
2. They were horrendous. They could barely beat non-D1 teams, and just what Abdul Rahim's done over there has been super impressive. I mean, they battled Florida. They only lost by 10. They beat App State in Boone. That's super impressive. I mean, App State's great over there in Boone. They always play teams close. And then they battled VCU this weekend. So I really like what he's building over there. I wouldn't really expect much out of Kennesaw State. I mean, Chris Youngblood's done a great job over there the last couple of years. I think Kennesaw State's a program on the rise. They keep getting better and better. I don't know if they're going to be top 4 in the league just yet, but they're continuously getting better.
Okay, Lipscomb. We'll move on to Lipscomb. Arguably, well, probably not arguably, I would say the best player in the conference resides on Lipscomb and Asin Asadullah. He's back for year 6. A guy who didn't play played a little bit last year, but he was dealing with a lot of injuries. And Lipscomb's already looked good. They won at Belmont. Did they beat Chattanooga too? Or they might have blew that one late, but I think they did beat Chattanooga. I don't know if they even played, Alan. I could be wrong, but I know they beat
Chattanooga by 6 in Chattanooga.
Okay, that's a great start to the season. So they add 2 D3 and NAIA studs. Matt Scurv, 23 points per game. So that core plus Asadullah being back, Asadullah is the key asset. I think he could lead them to a conference because just a few years ago they were the class of this. Yeah. They were winning this, and they took a little bit of a step back. But I think they will get back to on track. They finished 9th last year, which is not good at all by their standards.
Yeah, they had injuries.
Yeah, a lot of injuries. Anything else on Lipscomb you want to add?
Yeah, they had injuries last year, like I mentioned. I love their front court. You mentioned Hasan Sajla. I think he's one of the best players in the nation. He's double-double machine. He had injuries last year. Georgia kid, Atlanta kid. He's done a great job. And they got Ogniszewicz, I want to say his name is. Ogniszewicz, 18.5 points per game. He really shined in that non-conference last season when Hasan was hurt. But that front court, I mean, they can't get much better than that. Will Pruitt's been great at guard. They even battled Notre Dame. They lost by 1 to Notre Dame. They lost by 8 against a really good South Dakota team. But everything's looked really impressive this year. They beat Belmont on a buzzer beater. They beat Chat by 6. And now they play a really good Navy team tomorrow. So it's going to be interesting. I love their front court. It's different from like the rest of the league where it's really guard heavy. You got the Darius McGee's, you got the Kavion Nolans, Chris Youngbloods, the Chase Johnstons. So if they can really find a mismatch and dominate down low, I think this Lipscomb team will be right back up there towards the top. They're a great program. I really like what they have.
All right. Another team, North Florida. They returned 8 players from last season, including 3 double-digit scorers. They're still a fairly young squad, but they have the top guard in the conference in Josie Placer. So I think they're going to be another solid team. They finished 6th last year. With that returning, I think they could contend for the top spot in the ASUN. Anything on North Florida?
Yeah, they battled Duquesne a couple weeks ago. That was more of like a homecoming game for Matt Driscoll. He's a Pittsburgh guy. He always wants to be a Pittsburgh guy. I love Matt Driscoll. There's not many coaches with more energy in the country than he has, so he can have his boys go out there and play. You mentioned Jose Placer, former UMBC guy, can shoot the lights out. He's had trouble staying healthy. See how he goes. They got Carter Hendrickson in the front court. He's probably, outside of Hasan Sajla, the best front court player in this league. I really like him. Hicklin's done a great job so far. Omar Berry's deep in that roster. South Carolina State beat ECU. That's kind of crazy. But you mentioned they were 17-point dogs. I was getting a notification. But, I really like North Florida. I think they're going to be much better than they have been in the past. They've kind of hit a bump over these last couple years. I know I didn't even realize they had fans, but their fans were attacking me that I wasn't tweeting about them battling Washington. Like, who cares?
What, North Florida?
Yeah, yeah. But
where is that school? It is in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Damn, that's crazy.
I think that I like them. I think that they're going to be much better.
So who's your winner for the ASUN?
Maybe Liberty. Richie McKay, he's a great coach. They've really built an awesome program over there. Darius McGee is one of the best guards in the country. He can shoot the lights out of a 3-ball. And they have a lot of their pieces returning. So I really like what he's done over there, but I wouldn't be shocked if like a FGCU pops up, a Lipscomb pops up there. There's a lot of teams. It's much deeper than it has been in the past.
I'm gonna go with Jacksonville. I think they have a roster that just can compete. They were close to doing it last season, and they add some key pieces. So I'm gonna go with Jacksonville. And the team I'm gonna be fading, who has looked good already this season, is Stetson. I don't know. They're looking better than I have. It's that freshman. Is it a freshman that's been doing it all for them? I forget his name, but he's been doing awesome. But
off the bench. Yeah, Luke Brown.
Yeah. So they were finished 10th last year. They lose their top 3 scorers, and they don't have much returning. I'm kind of shocked how well they are starting, but so my fade will be Stetson.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'd go maybe like I don't know. There's a lot of really good teams in this league. A lot of teams that really compete. It was much better than I thought it would be. Even like a Central Arkansas, they play teams close. Eastern Kentucky can play teams close. Austin Peay can play teams close. North Alabama can play teams close.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'll ride on that Stetson train, but it's not locked in stone because I think that Luke Brown's actually as good as he's been playing. Queens is a really fun team. We didn't get to mention their offense is awesome.
Yeah. What's that one guy's name? He's a stud. The point guard.
Kenny Dye.
Kenny Dye. He is legit. He is legit.
It's a really tough league though, because I feel like there's going to be a lot of really close games this year, and teams are going to pick off teams when they aren't expected. I think Liberty's going to kind of find their way back to rolling in this league. I just love Darius McGee. I think he's a great guard.
That is a gross beat on the Duquesne Santa Barbara over 4 missed free throws in the last 2 minutes, but to lose by 2. Okay, moving on to the Big Sky. Fun conference. There's always a team or two that has a flash and shows potential that could win an NCAA tournament game. It's been Montana State recently. So we'll start with Montana. They returned 2 double-digit scorers in Whitney and Bannon, 4 transfers with decent experience. Give them depth. They've started not great to start the season, but they have come Big Sky time. They should be all right. What do you like about Montana?
I mean, Travis DeCurr is a great coach. He's been there for a long time. You mentioned Bannon. Bannon's been great. Moody's done really well. These Montana teams are expected to be towards the top of the league. It's been really interesting. It's been a really interesting start for the Big Sky. It's been really tough. It's a league that I love to watch. It's been tough to really tell anything on Montana because they got smoked by Xavier. They got smoked by Duquesne. Then they went out and they smoked St. Thomas, but I don't know how great St. Thomas is going to be this year. They're winning games that they're supposed to. They are losing games that they're supposed to. They play Southern Miss tonight. They're down 8.5. It's just going to be tough. I don't think that they have exactly the best talent in the league. They have Deshaun Thomas, who comes over from Colorado State, and he started a lot of games over there. But, I mean, they wouldn't be my first choice to win in this league. I think that they're a really good team. When all is said and done, going on the road and winning at any of these places in the Big Sky is tough.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, that's all I got from Montana.
All right, Montana State. They lose 3 key players, but they return the best player in the conference in Jabril Bello. He was the decoy and the player of the conference and of the year, so that's legit. They get Caleb Fuller from UC Davis, a guy who is done well there. So they have a pretty legit front court in those two. The guard depth is going to be interesting to see. Robert Ford from Idaho State transferring is going to be good. They should be the preseason favorites, and they are. They've looked all right to start the season. I think they have 1 bad loss, but besides that, nothing really to write home about them. It's pretty straightforward. What you see is what you get from Montana State, and I think it's going to be another good year. They won it last year, and they lost in the first round of the tournament. Anything on them?
Yeah, Raekwon Battle's been great. You mentioned Jabril Bello. He returns. English lad. He's great. Top player in the league. He really feasts down low. I really like Montana State. What Danny Sprinkle's built over there has been really impressive. It's his alma mater. I like it. They beat Long Beach State to open the season by 13. But but they really struggled this past weekend in Montreal. They got better as time went on, but if they open Big Sky play against, or no, I guess not anymore because Southern Utah is not in the Big Sky anymore, but they play a Southern Utah team as a really good backcourt. So it's going to be interesting to see how Raekwon Battle can compete against those guys. They were my preseason favorite heading into the season in this league. They're probably still there. There's a lot of really good pieces just sprinkled around this league. I don't know if teams really are like deep. There's just a lot of really good talent in the league. But I like Montana State. I like Jupiter Bailo. And when conference play turns around, they're definitely going to smoke the Idahos and Idaho States and not even Northern. I think Northern Arizona is pretty good, but those kind of teams.
Yeah, so Montana State is going to be my winner that I'm going to pick in this conference. But Northern Arizona, they returned 5 starters, including Jalen Cone, damn near 20 points per game. They got three transfers to improve depth of the team, and with that 5 returning starters plus Jalen Cone, only places to go from up. They finished 10th in the conference last season, but they have a lot more talent than that. They played a pretty tough preseason schedule. They got blown out by Arizona State, I think, or it wasn't close. They covered against Utah Valley, who's a tough team, played them decently close, and besides that, I think they will come Big Sky season. One of the most talented players in the conference is Jalen Cone, so he can light it up any given night. And besides that, I think those will be good. Anything on NAU?
Yeah, I mean Jalen Cone comes over from Virginia Tech. He was a star over there at Virginia, not a star, but he played really well over there at Virginia Tech, and he's just putting up big numbers at Northern Arizona. He has them competing pretty much every night, which is awesome to see. But yeah, I love that piece over there. They have a couple guys coming in, Xavier Fuller, Tout. I don't know if they're going to be up there towards the top of the league, but they're going to compete. They're going to compete, especially against like the middle to lower pack teams of the league. I bet on them a lot at home against the lower middle pack teams in the league. I think that they're a fun team. They're a fun team. Jalen Cone, when he's on, and he can score a lot of points. So if they're stopping him, which many teams haven't figured out how to stop him, but he's been in this league now for 2 years. So maybe they'll find a way to stop him. But I think he's just such a difficult guard to guard against, and he's a difference maker in this league. One of the best players, one of the best guards in the country.
All right, Northern Colorado, one of my least favorite teams in the entire country because they always look good on paper, but they don't ever pan out for me at least when I get bet on them. They lose their 2 double-digit scorers, but they return Dalen Kuntz, who's one of the best players in the conference. They went to the CBI semis last year, which is whatever you want to make out of that, you can make out of that. So the guard play will be solid. The front court is a little suspect to me. Could get obliterated down low by teams like Montana State, but they're a team who can put up big numbers. When they play Northern Arizona, just bet the over. I think that is a lock. Yeah. I think that it's going to go way over the total, whatever it is. So anything on NCU? Because I think they're a team who could be kind of fun. They never pan out for me.
Yeah, they're the real UNC.
Oh, yeah.
I love Steve Smiley, though. Steve Smiley came in there. He was in the Randy Ray School, the former Weber State coach, and he's gone down there to Greeley, and he's done a really impressive job. They put up a ton of points. You mentioned Dalen Kuntz is great. Last season, I wrote an article on just what he's done. When he got there, they had sanctions, and they couldn't they had like such a limited amount of scholarships, and they've just done an amazing job. Caught the attention of Stanford Steve, ended up meeting him at the A10 tournament. SVP's right-hand man, super nice guy.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
But yeah, they were always on bad beats because they would blow covers or whatever.
Yeah, I guess that's why I don't like them, man.
Yeah, I guess that's why you don't like them. But they got Dawson Knecht, who returns 17.4 points, 7.9 rebounds per game. Matt Johnson, he's been a great guard over there. Riley Abercrombie comes over from Rice. I've always been a big fan of him down there. Only averaging about 7 points per game. Should probably put up some more rebound numbers. But as of now, I honestly think that they're probably my favorite in the league. They were my favorite after a little while last season in the league. Didn't really pan out. They finished about 3rd. But they beat a good Jacksonville State team. They beat a good Northern Colorado team, or North Dakota State team. I'm talking about Northern Colorado. They beat A&M Corpus Christi. They kind of struggled against New Mexico, but I think they'll find that stride there. They got a really interesting game against Colorado State this weekend, and they play at Colorado the weekend or 3 weekends from now. But I really like that offense they run over there, and Steve Smiley's done a great job. If you want to look at a deep sleeper in the league, I said this last year too. I think that they're there. Also, I don't know if we're going to mention Eastern Washington. I think that they're another really good one. They've kind of really struggled.
I am happy that sometimes there's some things that I'm happy we don't agree on, because that's not good podcasting if you agree on everything. I hate Eastern Washington this year, and I think they're going to be a team that's just going to be fade for the whole season. But because I feel like they just lost a lot. They could be interesting. I don't know. You could be right on that one. I'm going to go against
horrible, but still Venters is like great shooting, 3-point shooter, whatever. But I mean, he really hasn't shown us this year, only 34.5%. So hopefully he gets better. I love what's his name? Deion Stroud. It comes over from Fresno State. He's like a dunking machine. But yeah. You mentioned that Hawaii tournament was awful.
Yeah, that was pathetic. All right, Sac State. They lose their leading scorer in Bryce Fowler, but the transfers they brought on were very interesting. They bring on 6 transfers, 2 Power 6 guys, and Yanni Hunt and Akola Mawian from Oklahoma. And I feel like Yanni Hunt had a bigger role in 2 years ago's Oregon State team than opposed to last year. Unless I don't know why I'm thinking that. I could be really wrong. Unless he's wasn't even on the team. Yeah. So he's there. Could be an interesting team. They finished 8th last year. Should be improved. But besides that, nothing really to write home about. I'm just high on Montana State more than anyone. Anything on Sac State, then we can get into the winners and the fates.
First of all, I fucking hate this UMass team. Thank God they're covering. They won by 6, but they were up like double digits, and they love to blow games. Good win.
What was the spread?
It was 2.5. I bought it down to 1 because I thought it was going to be close, and it closed at 1.5, so it was a win. I had my
That's good.
cousin's boyfriend gives out picks, so I've been helping him out sometimes, and it was a good one there. But Sacramento State, all these transfers. David Patrick comes in he was at Oklahoma last year as an assistant. He was at UC Riverside as a head coach for a little while. But Callum McRae, 10.3 points, 9 rebounds. People think he's just like a space eater, but he puts up pretty good numbers. He's good at UC Riverside. He should be good over there at Sac State. I know a lot of people really aren't buying what David Patrick's selling, but he has a lot of really good big men, a lot of really good guards. Hunter Marks comes in from Hartford. He hasn't really produced all that much this year. You mentioned Yanni Hunt from Oregon State. They got Wayne, who comes over from Oklahoma. He's putting up good numbers so far in that front court. They have a lot of really interesting pieces. I don't know if they're going to be right up there towards the top this year, but I think Sacramento State's going to be much better than they've been in the past. Because in the past, they have Marquette's up 20 on Baylor, but
eye emojis.
Yeah, that's crazy at halftime. But I think Sacramento State's not going to be an easy out anymore. They used to always be an easy out. I love that front court they have. It's a fun team. David Patrick's has something interesting going on over there. Just got to see how it rolls.
Okay, so I'm picking Montana State. Who are you going with?
Northern Colorado, as of now. I just think that offense is so difficult to go up against. Steve Smiley's done a great job over there. I wouldn't be shocked if Montana State came back and won it again. Jubal Baylor is just so great, but I like the way Northern Colorado runs with that offense and everything they have.
I'm going to be fading Portland State. They lose their top 6 players. 7 transfers come in, but no one really to write home about, and no real production from around those transfers. So I'm going to be going with Portland State, and they haven't looked great so far. Who are you fading in this conference?
I took Weber State tonight, but in the long run, I think it's going to probably.
I agree with you on that
because Randy Ray's gone. He's been there forever. He's been their head coach. So they got a new head coach. I feel like there's a lot of coaches that have been in this league for a while. They'll kind of pick Weber apart, and it's just a really veteran, one-star-led league, and Weber really doesn't have that guy so far. And I think in the long run, there's going to be a lot of really close lines with Weber. They'll be favored just because they're Weber State.
Just going to say that, yeah. They're a name that the public likes.
Yeah, the people know Weber State. So I think that they're going to be my fade.
All right. Big South, it's time to we'll start picking it up for you guys because we're pretty deep into the show and we got a decent amount left. All right. Big South, High Point, they got a new coach, Gigi Smith, son of Tubby, is there. They lose John Michael Wright, which was their everything man, but they return Big South Freshman of the Year in Zach Alston, which is going to be big. So they get a Minnesota transfer in Abdullah Thiem. How will they replace John Michael Wright is my outlook for them. Like, because he was their everything over the past few years. And I think if they've been just so reliant on him and they haven't really played like team basketball per se over his tenure. So I don't know how High Point will recover from that.
Yeah, I love Jaden House. Jaden House is one of the most underrated guards in the nation. I think he's going to be great over there. He's shown it so far. He's putting up numbers that John Michael Wright would put up over there, 22.3 points per game, 4.2 rebounds, and he's shooting 50% from the field. So I really like him. I mean, they've kind of grown on me over the years. I didn't know how Gigi Smith would do. Of course, he's been a head coach before. He was at Loyola. He was worked under his dad, and then when his dad had health issues last year, he took over for him. But Jaden House has looked really great so far. He's all Big South guard, in my opinion. And then they have Zach Austin in that front court, who I think is one of the most underrated players in the whole country. He's one of the top freshmen in the country last year. Really saw him take off when I went to the Big South tournament for one day over there in Charlotte. 15.2 points, 6.3 rebounds per game, 47.2% field goal percentage. There's not that many great big men in this league this year. You know, you got Drew Pember at UNC Asheville, who's absolutely insane. He's probably the best player in this league. He can stretch out, shoot threes. I think Zach Austin is a great piece for them down low. They've got a really good team over there at High Point, a lot better than I thought they were going to be. It's an appealing place for kids to go to because it's just a beautiful campus. It's kind of in the middle of like the ghetto, which I don't really understand. That's what I've heard at least.
Well, High Point.
Yeah, but you know, they got a good program. I like what Gigi Smith has done so far. Tubby's built them back up into relevance. I think that they're going to be up there towards the top of the Big South.
Okay, we'll talk about Longwood. The reigning champions kind of came out of nowhere. No one was really expecting that. But they returned 4 starters, and led by Deshaun Wade, Isaiah Williams. They're a gritty team, a tough team, a team that's athletic, and a team that is no one really wants to play because they're just going to out-hustle you, out-rebound you. A fun team, but I don't see them kind of running along with that like they did last year. We know they return a lot of guys just because the style of basketball they play. But it seemed to work, and it seems to be okay so far this season. They almost won at San Diego last night, which would have been a big win for them. So what do you like about this Longwood team going forward?
Yeah, Griff's just built that program up from nothing. He's another guy's built a program up from nothing. He was at UMBC. He was like the pretty much director of basketball operations with some recruiting stuff. And then he took this head coaching job, which is just absolutely insanity. He was a like gas mogul and a real estate agent, and he's just built his programs up just like that. And I love it. I mean, they got Isaiah Wilkins returning. Wesley Napper comes over from Southern Miss. He had a really strong February, and he's done really well there so far. Leslie Aquarium, he's done great so far. Deshaun Wade returns. Michael Christmas returns. Zach Watson returns. Nate Litteris returns. They got a lot of guys that return, and they should be right up there towards the top. They only lost one game, I want to say, in conference play last year, and that was at NCAA, one of the toughest places to play in the country. Griff's done an amazing job. It showed at San Diego last night. Challenged a really good team. Tied it there at the buzzer. Came from behind. They've kind of struggled otherwise, but, I mean, that's what you would expect out of a Big South team. Griff's got these guys playing at the right time. I wouldn't be shocked. They play Wichita State next weekend. I wouldn't be shocked if they went in there. They shocked the Shockers. This December should be really fun for a Longwood team that's growing. I mean, they open conference play against High Point on the 29th of December. But before that, there's 5 really winnable games. Griff's got a great team. Longwood should be as good as they were last year. They're my favorite. They are who I'm going to pick to win the league. Great job that Griff's done over there.
Okay. Third team we'll talk about. We got 2 more. Radford, 11-18 last year. They finished 3rd in their conference. They do not lose anyone too important. They bring on 6 transfers, including Brian Antoine, a guy from Villanova, a heavily recruit. He's a Jersey Shore guy. Watched him a lot growing up. He's in my grade. Stud. Him and Scotty Lewis were the 2 guys from Randy High School. Just absolute electric on the Jersey Shore. He never really panned out, injuries and stuff at Nova. Now he's there. Leading scorer Josiah Jeffers returns. There's no reason they shouldn't improve from last season. But if you watch them the first few games, they look hectic. I don't love their coach, to be honest. I don't love the offensive scheme that they're doing. It's been a little hectic, and it doesn't seem like it's not repeatable, I guess, because they almost beat Notre Dame early in the season, but I don't think their style of play is going to really pan out how I'm expecting it. I still like them, and it could work. They can out athletic teams in this conference, but I don't really know how it will work going forward. So, what's your take on Radford?
Yeah, I think Darius Nichols is a young coach who continue to grow and get better. He's doing a great job on the transfer cycle, like you mentioned.
Yeah, no, he is.
So hopefully they can do something. I mean, they kept it within 10 with Marquette. That's a good team. They only lost to Notre Dame by 3, and they went up to Army. I think Army is a pretty good team over there in the Patriot League this year. They got a couple freshmen in. They returned Jalen Rucker out of Gilman, and they beat them by 15 only. And then they had some interesting results. They went to William and Mary and lost by 11. But I don't know if I'm going to be too high on Radford finishing in the top 3 of this league. I think that they could finish 4th, which means they would get a bye in the conference tournament. I think if it's still, I don't know if it's still the way it is. They've changed it around a little bit, but I like what they have. I think that they're going to be much better than they were the last couple of years. They won't be back to the Mike Jones days where they were at the top of the league, but Radford's back on the rise again.
Okay, final team for this conference, UNC Asheville. Went to the CBI quarterfinals last year. They lose LJ Thorpe, which is around 15 points per game, but they return 2 double-digit scorers, including Drew Pember and their center. They add Fletcher Abey, a guy that I love at Citadel the past few years, veteran team with depth, and they're my pick to win this conference, actually. I think you like Longwood again, which I'm not hating at all. They won the conference. They return everyone. I think they're going to take a little bit of a step back. I think Asheville is a program that's been good a few years ago. It took a little bit of a dip, and now I feel like they're back on the rise. I like Asheville to make a run this year and win this conference. So how do you feel about them?
Yeah, Drew Pember's insane. I mean, he put up 40 points, I want to say, in that season opener against UCF. And then he got in foul trouble, and they still beat UCF in a double overtime. Really impressive. Tyjon Jones is there, like him. Battle 10.3. You mentioned Fletcher B coming over from Citadel. But like last season, it was a problem when Drew Pember got hurt. They really struggled they just struggled to close out games. They just struggled to win games. Showed in the conference tournament. They lost to Charleston Southern in the first round. If Drew Pember stays healthy, I think they can definitely be second in the league and overtake Winthrop there. But I do really like what they have. Their coach has been great, Mike Morrell. I think when the Big South is good, when UNC Asheville is good, and this should be that way this year. I mean, I really like I bet on them tonight. They lost at NC Central, so that's not good. They lost by 13. Haven't looked at that box score.
Yeah, it's not great. Not great.
Drew Pember with 15 points and 8 rebounds. They did shoot 52% from the field, and still
lost by 15. That's not good. NC Central, which we'll talk about, they're a decent team. I think they're going to be all right. But I think NC Central. I think Asheville should have won that game. Mm-hmm. So that's maybe they won't win this conference, but I'm still going to stick with my guns and go with Asheville. Who's your pick to win this conference? Longwood.
Longwood. Yep.
My fade is George Washington. They lose their top 2 scorers, including a big one in Joe Bamasil. And they return. They get 2 transfers from a D2 school and SEMO, but they're not guys who are gonna. Bam, I'm getting weird.
You're talking about GW. You mean Gardner Webb, right?
I'm literally talking about. Yeah, I got a little weird because I had a different tab open and then something else was playing in my thing, and then I went to my GW type stuff and because they're also my fade for a different conference. It's Gardner Webb though. My fade is Gardner Webb. So they replaced those 2 leading scorers with a Division II transfers and a transfer from SEMO who never really panned out. That never really scored the way their 2 leading scorer did. But they're my fade. Who's your fade for this conference?
I mean, I love Presbyterian coming into the year, but they've looked absolutely terrible.
How'd that game go tonight versus VMI?
Good question. They won. They won by 15. Good for them.
What was the score?
72-57. I thought it'd be a lot higher.
I wanted to bet that under. So your fade is Prez?
I mean, I don't know now because, Winston Hill did play tonight. He played a little bit. He was 0 for 3 from the field with 5 rebounds. So I don't know. But they have a lot of really good pieces. It's just been a struggle to get everyone to really play together. so far over there. I think if everyone plays to their full potential, they could be a top-tier team in this league. But just the way that they've been looking so far, I would probably have to take them. It's another league that there's a lot of really close games. Winthrop, I'm not too high on Winthrop so far this year. They've really struggled so far. They have a completely new team, but
Yeah.
you know what? Mark Prosser's a great coach over there. So the only thing is I think there'll be a lot of lines in their favor early on in the season. Maybe at in Asheville, they'll be a favorite. They play at home against Asheville on New Year's Eve. If that's a big line, take Asheville. They might even be favored against Longwood. Obviously, I love Longwood. But as of now, just because of the way the teams are playing, they could definitely get better. I would go with Winthrop and PC.
Okay, that wraps up the Big South, and we will